Good evening and welcome to the City of Palm Coast City Council business meeting this evening. Today is Tuesday, December the 5th, 2023 at 6 p.m. and we're in the community wing of City Hall. I would ask if you would all please stand and join me in our Pledge of Allegiance. Following the pledge, you're welcome to remain standing for a moment of silence to reflect, meditate, pray, or pause for a moment.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I thank you all. Please be seated. Before we begin our public participation, please, roll call.
Mayor Alfin.
Here.
Vice Mayor Danko.
Here.
Councilmember Hyder.
Present.
Councilmember Pontieri. Present. And Councilmember Clufus is absent.
Thank you, Kaylee. Before we begin public participation this evening, and I'll go through the directions of those in a minute, we had a press release earlier today, which I'm going to ask our city manager to summarize for us, which will kick off the public participation. So, Ms. Bevan, if you would.
Yes, absolutely, Mayor. So, yes, a press release did go out today to talk about our proactive stance on some of the concerns we've been hearing about infill development and standing water in yards. And that press release also reflected our actions that we're doing to just continue the conversation from last week, that we established a workflow, so city staff intakes a complaint, meets individually with the resident on site to gather relevant information, conduct thorough research on and around the property, and then present the case back internally to our experts. And I do have to say, we take the on-site visits very much a priority, because it's really important that we hear from the resident, the owner, and any adjacent owners that have concerns. So it's going to take us a little while to make sure we can schedule those inspections, and we want to make sure we have ample time to listen to the residents. So it could be anywhere from an hour or 2 hours on site.
All right, thank you for that. And Vice Mayor, this will be so every week we'll kind of push the follow-up so we stay on top as you had asked. Very good. So we move to public participation. In order for city staff to be able to respond to your questions or concerns, please fill out a comment card, which are located in the rear of the room. The comment cards are on the table near the agendas or from the communications manager in the rear. Anyone wishing to speak may approach the podium, provide their name, and may speak for up to 3 minutes. Please direct all comments to the mayor, be concise and to the point. Avoid delaying or interrupting the proceedings, and do not make any irrelevant, impertinent, or slanderous comments. Any person who becomes disorderly may be barred from making any additional comments and may be removed. So with that, I see I have someone at the podium, so please proceed.
Thank you. Good evening. My name's Ken McDowell. I live over in District 2. And one item I feel like I need to mention is that I know you guys late Thursday were given an agenda packet and expected to make decisions and all on it by tonight. And I find that pretty compacted time for any of you to study it in depth and come up with a valid conclusion on it. And I would hope that in the future you folks could have a little longer time to absorb it. Having said that, my next item is has to do with the city government undergoing a forensic audit. In case you don't know what that is, a forensic audit is a type of audit that examines financial records to detect fraud, embezzlement, and other financial crimes. A full municipal forensic audit is an extensive examination of a municipality's financial records, accounts, business transactions, accounting practices, and internal controls to detect any fraudulent activities that may have occurred. Now, those items that are included in a fraud risk assessment or a forensic audit are, I'll just name them quickly, vendor maintenance and vendor payments, cybersecurity and cybercrime risk, cash and check handling, fuel use management, purchasing, including P cards or purchase cards, utility billing, field operations, all departments, entity level controls, inventory management, that's a good one, payroll fraud, permitting operations. A lot of permitting going on in this city right now. Subrogation, claims management, accounts payable and accounts receivable. Refunds, voids, and chargebacks. Big room there for potential fraud. Fictitious vendors, fake invoices, fraudulent returns, travel advances and expense reimbursements, workers' compensation management, bid rigging, kickbacks, conflicts of interest, scheduled drug management, that'd be for fire and EMS, which is not an item, and then evidence oversight and management for law enforcement operations. But the bottom line is that, come on, there's never been, in the city of Palm Coast, never been a forensic audit, fraud risk assessment, whatever you'd like to call it, performed. We are way overdue. Please, for the sake of everybody paying taxes and footing the bills, that everybody up here gets to make decisions on how to spend it, give us the satisfaction of knowing we have a clean government. That's all we ask.
Thank you for your comment. Next speaker, please. Yes, sir.
Good evening. I'm Mike Martin. I'm the chairman of the board of East Flagler Mosquito Control District, and I just wanted to let everybody know that there have been a few complaints about the mosquitoes at Indian Trail Sports Complex. We've heard about them. We know about them. We budgeted to buy a new ATV with a spray system that we can go out there and spray. And our experiment is going to be to try to spray using garlic juice, because garlic juice is not a registered pesticide. We can spray it whenever we want. Pesticides, we are required to have minimum numbers of mosquitoes in an area before we can legally spray. We have not had those numbers in November. We have not been able to spray anywhere. But the garlic juice is not a registered pesticide. We can spray it whenever we want. So I do want to assure people that if your children are playing on the Indian trails, we know about the mosquitoes. The big problem, it's located right next to Hewlett Swamp, and with those giant floodlights, it draws mosquitoes from the swamp. So even though there's not a lot of mosquitoes around, every mosquito in Hewlett Swamp sees those lights and comes running. So we are working on it. I just want to ensure the population, we're working well with the city. And I want to thank the Park and Recs Department for meeting with us. So we're trying to get on top of it. So just want to let people know. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Next speaker, please. Yes, sir.
Hi, happy holidays to all. Joe Runak, 7 Courtney Court. I've been here before. I'm here right now again to discuss proposed cell phone tower, 7 Clubhouse Drive, an inappropriate area. I was quite surprised that no other alternate site has ever been presented on this. From 2 years ago, when we were asked to attend a meeting, it has been 7 Clubhouse Drive, 7 Clubhouse Drive. Colbert has miles and miles of woods, not near any people, not near any businesses. I wonder why that was never considered. I would believe that would be the norm for something like this. Initially, it was for AT&T Tower. Now it's changed for Verizon Tower. I don't know if Diamond Communications is actively promoting this site. Why the switch? It doesn't matter really, because if the tower is ever built, everyone will want to put their equipment on it. It's too close. It's 300 feet from my house. Our city manager has looked at that and emailed me. Again, in my opinion, just because you can do something doesn't mean you should do something. There seem to be other sites in this area. I have invited and will again today the entire city council. You have my email, you have my phone number to come and take a look for yourself. Right now, the application has been sitting incomplete twice. The area is not zoned for it. The area is inappropriate for it. There will be ancillary buildings. The area that would surround is very quiet at night. You could hear a pin drop, and I'm sure we're going to get mechanical hum. It's not just the tower. There are other buildings. Excuse me. I asked the city council to work with, if possible, the planning board. The planning board is looking at this situation. The situation needs a special exemption. That should tell you something. There's no zoning for it there. It was tried on the other side of the golf course, and as you can see, there's no tower there. There's health effects. There's financial effects as far as value of the homes, and it would just change the entire character of the area that it's in due to the height. It would be twice as tall as its trees. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comment. Is there another speaker that would like to address me in City Council? Yes, sir.
Mark Stansel, how's the council tonight?
Pull it forward, so there you go.
I'd like to bring up about Seminole Woods, the lighting along Seminole Woods. They've got the lighting all up, it's really nice, but there's a couple of sections that have not been lit up. And so I checked with the Public Works office, okay, to find out what was going on. And they said that, well, we paid for them, we got them up there, but we cannot service them or turn them on. That's FPL. So I'm just wondering why nobody from here has not found out why FPL is not doing that, if that is the true case. I'd like to see those lights up. We paid for them. Let's get them working. The other thing has to do with, a lot of people have been complaining about flooding from the new homes being built. They're building them too high. Well, you know, and there was a video, on TV last week, special about that here in Palm Coast. And something about, you know, it's supposed to be at least 12 inches high, but there's no ceiling as to how high they can build it. My question is, why can't the city council put a ceiling on it? Amend the code to where the builders can't exceed that. That's all I'd say. Now, it won't fix what's happened in the past, but it can help the future. Because, you know, with all the flooding and plus with the swales that haven't been dug out and fixed, you know, we've had pep tank issues, and it just doesn't, I'm sorry about that. Train of thought, I'm thinking about two different things, but we need to fix the infrastructure for the swales and to keep the flooding down, you know, and by limiting the houses, that works too. I'm also here to support the neighbors over on Old Kings Road, the Hidden Lakes and Toscana area. Old Kings Road is a historical byway, and it needs to be preserved. And it also has flooding issues over there, but it was never meant to be built for storage units and apartments along Old Kings because it's a scenic byway. And we need to consider not letting apartments and those ugly storage units being built along that because it's a beautiful road. That's all I have today. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Is there another speaker?
Steve Carr, Palm Coast. For about 10 plus years, residents of Residential Street of Florida Park Drive have complained about the excessive traffic, speeding, truck traffic, along with the traffic fumes, dust, and noise that is harming the health of residents also. The excessive traffic that is using the residential street as a thoroughfare to exchange traffic between Palm Coast Parkway and Palm Harbor Parkway. As traffic increases on either one, Palm Coast Parkway or Palm Harbor Parkway, the traffic increases on Florida Park Drive. There is a truck ordinance for Florida Park Drive that is not being enforced. I'd just like to ask, how would it look if residents could pick and choose which city ordinance they would like for the city to ignore. Let's give it a try and see how it works. Most of the residential streets were constructed in the 60s and 70s by ITT when truck weights were less and residential streets were, and the construction vehicles weighed less. In 2023, weight of construction vehicles are heavier, and suppliers are shipping heavier building materials and using less trucks to try to make fewer trips to save money, which is also damaging the infrastructure. What was the square footage of homes in the 60s and 70s? What is the square footage of the homes today? Have you driven Florida Park Drive lately to realize how its infrastructure has been damaged? Florida Park Drive pavement is crumbling. The city has dug it up several times to do repairs of damaged pipe, pump station, weirs, manholes, and there is much more to do. Not only is it harming the residents with constant repairs to their automobiles, but it is harming every Palm Coast taxpayer, destroying the infrastructure faster than it can be repaired at a time when the city says that there is a $52 million infrastructure shortage. The city shoots itself in the foot and then asks taxpayers to pay for the damages. Allowing the destruction of the infrastructure and then wanting taxpayers' money to repair it. In the newspaper, there was an article that says, protect. Are you protecting residential neighborhoods from excessive traffic? Stand by. Are you standing by in residents when they tell you there is a problem? Safeguard. Are you safeguarding residents' health? Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Is there another speaker? Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. My name is Carol Brassfield. I live in Palm Coast in the W section. I am requesting a moratorium on building until you all decide a height from the crown to the house being built, the crown of the road to the house being built. And anything over an inch is going to cause flooding. The builders and workers next door that are starting a new home told me that they would elevate the lot next to us from 4 to 8 feet higher than my home. This particular lot has 5 houses on its perimeter, and all 5 have a big chance of flooding. When I addressed this as wrong, I was told, too bad, that's what's happening in Florida. My home was built in 1994, and it is full of memories I don't want wet. The week we had 9 inches of rain flooded our yard front and back because the home to our south is elevated, and we get the runoff now, and we have a home being built, and it's going to be elevated next to us, so we will be stuck in the middle of 2 elevated homes. We were told we could build a drain, but we did not cause this problem. Letting these builders have free rein will destroy my home and yard, and the city does not maintain the swells to keep them working, so even if a drain is built, it won't help. You are supposed to be protecting the citizens here, and I hope you consider a moratorium, because I don't want this house being built and my house being flooded.
Thank you for your comment. Next speaker, please. Go ahead.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Peter Johnson, Palm Coast. Mayor, I'm here today on behalf of Candace Stevens and the hundreds of other residents in Palm Coast who are experiencing similar flooding issues. Unfortunately, Ms. Stevens could not attend tonight's meeting, as she has already taken off a significant amount of time from work to engage in the fight to protect her physical property and the equity of her home. Even though she was unable to attend, she wanted her voice to remain heard, so she reached out to me to speak on her behalf in regards to the reckless overdevelopment in Palm Coast and the major flooding issues it has created. This is an issue that thankfully has not affected my residents. However, it has unfortunately affected a significant percentage of the existing homeowners in the city, with the possibility to affect even more. Mayor Alfin, according to the most recent numbers that you provided, there are approximately 8,000 infill lots left within the city. If we take a conservative approach and assume that at least 2 of the 3 or 4 properties that are in direct proximity of the now vacant lots will be affected, either to the side or located in the rear, then this flooding issue will have the potential to impact at least 16,000 existing homeowners who have built their lives here. The city's response to the existing residents who asked for a citizen advisory board is borderline comical. The spirit of a citizen advisory board is to show that there is a level of clear transparency established as the city works to remediate the issues, hand in hand with the affected homeowners. Yet instead, they were told that an internal task force had been formed, presumably by the same people who created the problem, or at best ignored it and did little to address the totality of the situation. To tell the affected homeowners that the citizens would be advised that after the internal group of the city staff worked on the issue is downright insulting to the people who have paid their taxes and contributed to your salary. I'll tell you what, Mayor, it's not a good look, especially on the back of a city attorney in the firm who for the past 17 years has served this city as legal counsel, effectively handed in their resignation with no definitive plan to continue service. Quite frankly, it makes me wonder why. What do they know that we don't? Or should I say, what do they know but do not want to represent? They clearly stated that they have zero plans to replace Ms. Bork and put up little to no resistance, in fact suggested that the city may have to part ways in totality with the firm. We can read between the lines, Mayor. Why would they not be concerned about losing such a large portion of their business? Is it because there's a level of scrupulous activity taking place behind closed doors? Is it because the city council is refusing to heed the advice of their own legal representation in regards to conflict of interest? Or is it because they know that potentially fault of the city on behalf due to lack of regulations, which could have prevented the flooding issue, which may resolve in further litigation? All questions, but all questions we will probably never get answered because these seem to be an unwillingness to conduct a third-party forensic audit or just be simply transparent with the residents of Palm Coast. I've been asked by numerous pro-growth advocates and acquaintances of yours why I'm so critical of the spending habits and financial decisions of the city. And it's for this exact reason. We need to save for a rainy day when the city faces turmoil and the rainy day is here. No pun intended, we should not be spending money like
Your
this.
3 minutes is up. Thank you.
Thank you for your time today.
Next speaker, please.
Good evening, Jeffrey Seib. The city of Palm Coast seems to be on an increasing gradient of problems as of late. Crumbling roads and traffic jams, stormwater and drainage issues, water and sewerage growth issues, even calls for a criminal check of the city's finances, and now we learn of the extent of the flooding of existing home sites and the apparent lack of oversight by city departments whose job it is to ensure new home construction does not in any way damage adjacent properties. The city manager proclaimed that stakeholders are addressing the issue. Who are the stakeholders? Turns out the usual suspects: the home builders, realtors, and construction groups. City staff utilize these same groups as stakeholders for the sign ordinance specifications. And what are we getting? Lawns and swales flooded not just with water, but with up to 6 6-foot signs. In other places, these stakeholder groups are known as special interests. City manager, city staff, and city council, you are looking at the stakeholders for the city of Palm Coast. We residents that have come here to petition our government have more than just a business stake in our city. We have a life stake. I am here for the duration, as are many. For young families raising their kids, this is the American dream. We must be included in any of all of these decision-making groups to be sure our voices are heard. Would including the public in these stakeholder groups be cumbersome at first? Probably. Would including the public slow the process down at first? Maybe. Would the result of public participation be an all-inclusive solution that we all could live with? Absolutely. Right now, the city is preparing to update our comprehensive plan, which is the blueprint, so to speak, for the manner in which our community grows and develops for the next 25 years. At the community center presentation, speakers mentioned that city staff is setting up stakeholders to make changes. I urge the council to utilize residents as members of all groups having anything to do with the new comprehensive plan, not just the special interests. So, if a problem is also an opportunity, then I asked you to allow us to work in these groups and together find the right solutions for our Palm Coast. And always wanting to end on a high note, Merry Christmas.
Thank you for your comment. Next speaker, please. Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name's Jeff Dunn. I live on Parkview Drive. My house was built in 1985. I come here tonight to bring to your attention the issues my family has had in regards to the building code process this body has implemented regarding new houses development. It makes no sense to me or my wife that a developer can build a house that's raised anywhere between 8 to 18 inches higher than the houses next door to it, unless the houses beside it are also the same height. Prior to Tropical Storm Nicole in 2022, we've had no flooding issues in our backyard whatsoever, okay? Since then, we've had houses built 2 doors up, 4 doors down behind us, and they're higher than we are. So we are the cesspool for the neighborhood. That storm produced enough water in my backyard. It gave me 11 inches of water and mist coming into my house by 1/8 of an inch into my master bedroom. My wife has had the forestry department and stormwater division come out and inspect it, see if there's anything they can do. Their answers to us were, sue your neighbors in civil court. It's not the city's responsibility. So I guess my thing is to now sue my neighbors. Doesn't make any sense to me. I've built houses before, lived up north. We always made sure the grades were perfect. I don't understand why we don't do that down here. To date, my wife and I have spent $10,000 on landscaping and drainage to hopefully solve this problem because we do not want to have to move from this city. My question to you, what is the solution this committee is going to have so we don't have to move from this lovely town, all right? And regarding the task force, my wife has sent them an email with pictures weeks ago, no responses. Thank you for your time. Merry Christmas.
Thank you for your comment. Next speaker, please.
Good evening, Council and Mayor. I'm going to change the subject a little bit. We're going to start talking about mosquitoes for a little bit and children, some of which maybe you guys have that play out at Indian Trails. I'm not a longtime resident here. I've been here 3 years. This is where we retired to because our children moved down here, put their kids into sports. I'm an old coach, retired from coaching a long time ago. Don't know a whole lot about it anymore, just a little bit here and there. But we start with, this is an instructional league with children that are not of the quality or the ability to be playing travel baseball at this point in time. When these kids are out on the field and their parents have spent money in order for them to play for an organization, and those children have to sit out there and continually swat at mosquitoes, and their attention span is already somewhat limited because of the age group that we're dealing with, or that I've been watching at this point in time, there's an issue. When I make a phone call, and these calls started 6 weeks before Thanksgiving, and I don't get phone calls back, and I've talked with Mr. Martin, and Mr. Martin and I have had hours of conversation and texts back and forth about the issues, and I understand them considerably better. Let me make it very clear. I don't care about traps. When your children, my grandchildren, are being affected by mosquitoes to the point where they cannot focus on what is being taught to them, then you have an issue, and the traps mean absolutely nothing to me. Forget the traps and do the right thing. These kids in this instructional league have a right to learn. You have a responsibility to make sure that field stays clear. I understand it's backed up to a swamp. When it got real serious, about 2 weeks before Thanksgiving, I called the city manager's office and I found out that she was on vacation. No qualms with that whatsoever. But an executive decision could have been made on the behalf of somebody in charge of the city government at that point in time to spray that field with the very garlic juice, which I didn't even know you could have enough garlic to get juice out of, to be honest with you, to take care of the mosquito issue. Not only did an executive decision not get made, this is a major issue for you all. But I didn't get a return phone call from anybody. That's Bush League. You don't ever want to have your business or your organization set up to be called Bush League. Wrong way to go about it. You need to become more proactive and less reactive. You need to return phone calls and let these kids have an opportunity to learn. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comment. Next speaker, yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Heather Davis, and I live at 66 Parati Lane. First off, I sent an email on September 5th. This started in the summer, but I'm going to kind of go over my email but redact some of it because of what I said. First and foremost, the house being built next to me is way too high and is going to flood everybody out. We have been told that the law does not regulate how high it can be at this time. I understand that you will be working on changing that law for next year. That does not help anybody right now at all, or for future. The fact that it is known by everybody the law needs to be changed tells me and any other reasonable person that there is a problem. If you drive by the house, I believe it's 62 Parati Lane, it looks like it's on an island. It's a little cartoon house. It's obnoxious. You can drive by. People are driving by looking at it. It's that bad. Sent that September 5th, September 6th, sent another just a follow-up to see if somebody would respond, nothing. September 7th, would you be happy if this was your house? They are encroaching on our land and Palm Coast is burying the, oh, that was part I'm redacting, sorry. Got a response from a Patrick Buckley saying that city staff is not avoiding your situation. You have been connected with the city department that is able to respond to your complaints. Still nothing. Today is December, 5th? My husband and I just got a email 3 hours before this meeting that they are willing to meet with us. I feel like that's just interesting that it's 3 hours before this meeting. All this writing and documentation, and no response from anybody. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comment. Next speaker, please.
Good evening, Robert McDonald, Palm Coast. A couple of months back, we spoke about the 8,000, 9,000 vacant lots in the city, and I questioned why the Department of Public Works is using our employees, our trucks, our fuel, and our labor costs to cut property that doesn't belong to the city. It belongs to whoever owns that piece of land. If I don't cut my grass, code enforcement is going to slap a violation on my house saying for uncut property. But yet, these 8,000 or 9,000 people who probably don't even live in the city of Palm Coast, they're allowed to have grass this high, and nobody complains. I have a vacant lot. We have a 30-foot guideline for property in between each house. The grass next to my house is probably about that high, and it's probably about 15 feet closer to my house. I've called the city. I've called wildlife people. They came out, they inspected it. They said, well, we found a dead tree on the property, so we cut the dead tree down. Okay. I said, what about the overgrowth and the uncut grass? Oh, we'll take care of it. Well, the next day, there was three Public Works vehicles all cutting grass down on the 3 empty lots on my cul-de-sac. So I'm questioning, I want to know why a city employee is still cutting grass on property that doesn't belong to the city. But more importantly, I want to know the dollar cost, whether it be monthly, yearly, whatever it costs. I want to know exactly how much fuel we're using, how much labor we're costing, and how about the cost of the vehicle? Because this is a waste of time and money. We got parks and roads that are not getting cut because these guys are going out and cutting property that doesn't belong to the city. So something is not right. And I know this issue has been brought up before, and it just seems to go in one ear and right out the other. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Next, is there another speaker that would like to address City Council? Yes, ma'am.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Joy Cook. I live on Seminole Woods. My house was built in 2018. I've been filing complaints with the city about my driveway being cracked due to the pipe sitting 4 inches below the swell. This has been going on for 3 years now. The city came out to address a street flooding issue, which has been flooded in my neighbor's yard for several years. To correct the issue, they told me they would have to add dirt to the swell to change the pitch of the flow to the drainage area down the street. Within the first year, the driveway started to crack from the pressure of the sitting water in the pipe, from the rain drainage, When the engineer came out to inspect, he said in his report that it was my fault that my driveway was cracking due to me trimming my lawn too much and the poor building materials. Didn't say anything about the 4 inches of dirt and sod that blocked the flow that they have created. Water does not flow upwards. Not to mention that the street and my neighbor's yard is still flooding. I've contacted the city several times and asked them to meet me personally, and to this day I have not gotten any response. This has been close to a year now, and I did complete another card today. Also, I'm here to support my neighbors who live off of Old Kings Road in Hidden Lakes and in Susquehanna and other communities that you have or plan to have rezoned for apartments. We fought the issue in Seminole Woods for no rezoning and apartments. We made a promise that we would support our community and sections in Palm Coast and fight as neighbors. No parcel should ever be rezoned to accommodate any developer or for your own personal idea of western expansion, especially to a multifamily or industrial, where they can build apartments and storage units, so close to a residential or a community. We all have been hearing it's about future employees. What about the ones that live here now? We know why this is being done, and it will be addressed at a later date. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Next speaker? Yes, ma'am.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Darlene Shelley, Arena Lake Drive in Hidden Lakes, Palm Coast. And I wanted to use my 3 minutes this evening as an opportunity for public comment to express my concerns in the city of Palm Coast regarding the lack of smart growth, the traffic backups on Old Kings Road, the apparent approvals of allowing for urban sprawl, the lack of access for emergency vehicles, the unattainable demands on our infrastructure, local schools over capacity, lowered property values, increased crime statistics, the excessive amount of special exceptions, unnecessary zone changes, allowing developers to pillage our neighborhoods and rob us of our needed business and office zone parcels. Greed over need, the disregard for the protection of historic properties and wetlands, the lack of preservation of green space and conservation areas, displacement of our wildlife, risks to our endangered species, plants and animals, and many other topics regarding the safety, health, and welfare of the citizens of Palm Coast. Our quality of life is being negatively affected by the choices that you are making here. Choices that benefit developers, out-of-state conglomerates, and all of their affiliates. Approving zone changes and special exceptions that allow for unnecessary, incompatible, and inconsistent construction of untold numbers of storage facilities and apartment complex is contrary to public interest and is in direct conflict with the Land and Development Code that was put in place to protect us, the citizens of Palm Coast. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Next speaker, please.
Evening, Council. Dennis McDonald. Before I forget, I just want to encourage you to have an audit. We should have had an audit here in this city a number of years ago, but certainly, let me tell you why I think we should have an audit. Is because we had a city manager here and a staff consistent for 12 years. So do you think after 12 years maybe somebody should check the books? I think it's just a good idea just to make us feel good, okay, if nothing else. The reason what I'm going to speak about here right now is I heard everybody in this room, and I hear a lot of people saying it's a hopeless situation as far as their drainage is concerned. And I want to tell them it's not hopeless, because there is a way to remedy a lot of this, okay? And that is the building code in the state of Florida. When you put in a foot of fill, okay, or remove any of the muck that's on that property, and you put in a good fill, for a foot. Once you go over that 1 foot, you have to provide engineering for that. They have to have that engineering ready on site for the first inspection on that building. Now, I went out and looked at Birchwood. Okay, I believe there's probably 5 feet of fill in there. The guy who built the house admitted to spending $17,000 in fill for that house. So I'm sure there's at least more than a foot of fill in that property. That requires engineering. Now, the interesting thing is, I queried the city, and the clerk very nicely referred me, and I got told by the building inspector, oh yeah, there are engineering reports, but we don't keep them. Wait a minute, you don't keep a component, the first component that's necessary to get your first inspection on a lot? I smell something wrong here, okay? I requested an FOI on Birchwood. I never got it because I'm told by the building inspector, his inspectors saw it and they said, okay to pour, but he doesn't have it in the file. I'm asking you folks to look into this right away because apparently, you know, this is standard operating procedure here. We've got a lot of fill going in on lots. They don't have to be this high, and this is one way to stop it. So I'm saying to everybody who has had this type of infringement on their property to go to the building inspector and demand the engineering that allowed them to put that much fill into the lot, okay? It is Florida Building Code passed by the legislature, and guess who controls that building code in this county? The county commissioners. So go to your county commissioners, there's a process for it, okay, follow it out. We got some stuff here that doesn't smell right. There is hope. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Yes, sir.
Yes, good evening, George Mayo, Palm Coast. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas to start. This past holiday, Thanksgiving fell on a Thursday, which was our neighborhood's trash and recycling day. Everybody in the whole neighborhood had it out, figuring the trash would be picked up the following day, as it has been ever since I've lived here. It was that way with Waste Pro, and I believe FCC had done that previously. Well, they did not come. They didn't come the following day. They didn't come Saturday. My wife had went to Palm Coast Connect and said it's going to be doubled up the following week. So when you negotiated a contract with FCC, I don't know if you negotiated the same level of service, because you are not getting the same service that was given us by Waste Pro, because they always picked up the following day and moved it up and picked up on Saturday whenever anybody's was on Friday. Not so bad trash because you come twice a week, but recycling is once a week. And there were plastic bottles blowing around, sitting there outside all week over, plastic trash blowing around. I'm wondering if at least maybe you can pick up recycling at least the following day if you want to hold off on trash. But I'd like to know, is this the city's policy going forward? Because Christmas and New Year's is following on Monday. That is, again, our neighborhood's trash pickup. Will they just wait till Thursday, or are they going to move things up? And will this be the city's policy going forward, from now on? Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comment. Next speaker, please.
Bruce Stone, C-section. I've been coming to city council for 6 years, discussing traffic. It gets worse and worse on Cimarron. Now you have bikers riding right down the middle of the street, in the middle lane. It's not only Cimarron, it's Frontier, it's all over the place. All over the place. And I recently was with Al's family. He's sorry. They truly believe his father died because he worked too hard for safety. They're really disappointed they didn't go to an attorney's firm to bring a legal action. In addition, you have city council people making reports to newspapers. There's only one person that's complaining. There's a bunch of residents complaining about Wawas. In addition to that, we hit a huge pothole. The manhole was off. According to Google records, if the city knows of a traffic problem, they're responsible for the cost of your car, and if you don't get the reimbursement from the city, you have every right to sue the city the amount of the car. I don't care if it's $200, $300, it'd be worth it to me. You're not taking care of the people, you're not taking care of the streets, you're not taking care of anything. And to build apartment houses next to private homes, you know what's gonna go to the value of that home? You're gonna have Section 8 all over the city. Wake up.
Thank you for your comment. Any additional speakers? Yes, ma'am.
My name is Celia Puglisi. I live in Palm Coast since 1991. First of all, I want to address in the last meeting, the City Council, probably with the best intentions, and then under the advice request of Mr. Danko, suggested that the city looks for advice from the county attorney regarding picking a new, when it comes the time to choose a new council for the city. I want to remind you all that through all the years that the legal team, the current legal team of the county have been working, we are stuck now with paying $1 million to barbecue, Captain's Barbecue. The losses of buying a contaminated hospital, the Sears building, many other issues. And now the county has the lawsuit from the city of Ormond Beach. So all of that has been done through the same legal team that Mr. Danko, because he's running for county commissioner, decided to advise the city to ask for some advice from their legal team. I think the city needs to be very mindful of that and just find our own attorney for what we need, okay, and without the wrong kind of advice at this point. One other thing, Mr. Mayor, you said, our manager said there were only 26 houses with the flooding problem. I bet today there are many more, given the construction allowed out of the blue, because since I live here, I've never seen this before. This has happened lately. Houses are being built with 4 feet higher than the neighbor. One other thing, I also support Mr. Joe Ronak, because we will, all 100 people that we represent will be affected by this 5G tower. And on November the 12th, the city of Stamford, Connecticut rejected all 5G towers to be installed on the city because of health concerns. So if we proceed with this one in number 7, Clubhouse Drive, which is 150 feet to 200 feet from one of our association's home right across the street on Clubhouse Drive, and if the city proceeds with that, I don't understand why Mr. Tyner, our chief planner, have come up with this new location after we defeated the first location in 2021 under Mrs. Holland administration. This is nonsense. This is a PSP lot, and it's non-conforming lot, size, and also because our chart does not allow it. And also, this tower will need an special exemption to our residential zoning. So please think
Thank you. Thank you for your comment. Anyone else, public comment at this time? Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. I'm here in front of you this
Please,
evening. My
just-
name is
thank
Mara
you.
Worth, and I am from 96 Birchwood Drive. I'm here again regarding our situation at 98 Birchwood Drive. I have attended 4 meetings. Each time I have had filled out this piece of paper with my contact information and the details of my situation, and I have never had a call back or an email. Nothing, just to let you know. I'm here to let everyone know in this room that many weeks ago in a meeting with a representative of the builder that's being built next to mine, the house, Estella Living, he made certain promises in front of the public about giving us a document that will reassure myself and the other homeowner that if any flooding happens in the future, that they will take care of the cost to fix it. That was about a month ago, and we have not heard from him. This commitment, like I said, was made in front of many witnesses. So it leads me to believe that this builder cannot be trusted. I also want to bring up the statement that the city manager made on the last meeting. She had said that the task force was being formed, has been consulting with different individuals and groups to ensure that the new homeowner's bottom line is protected. Well, what about the existing homeowner's bottom line? Don't we matter? We have been paying fees and taxes this whole time. I just don't understand why their bottom line can be protected and not ours. And lastly, in the interest of the public, the citizens of the city deserve a voice in that task force. Many of our citizens have been asking the Stormwater and Engineering Department for help for years and did nothing. They never did anything. No help. They say it's 26 cases. No, there's more than 100 cases, 100 homes affected by the flooding. Please stop closing out cases that are unresolved. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Yes, sir. Good.
Good evening, Council. I'm Donna McGevna, and in full disclosure, I want to say that I live in Grand Haven. So first, I'd like to say that I miss Nick seeing on the council, and so I hope he's doing okay. But the reason why I bring up Nick is that I wish that Nick was here tonight, because in answer to this long, ongoing discussion about towers, that I bring up the fact that I live in Grand Haven because people consistently say, why are we not moving it to Colbert Lane? Colbert Lane has long-standing had a tower and continues to have a tower on Colbert. It happens to be an AT&T tower. And I've had several discussions along with my colleague Doris about towers and cell phone towers. And let me just share with you one piece of information that Nick has given to us from a technological standpoint. The towers don't choose us. We don't choose where we want the towers to go. We can't say, why isn't it on Colbert? Why isn't it on Old Kings Road? It's a feed from the tower where the tower gives us the best signal. So may I suggest somewhere on a future agenda that we have Nick explain to the community how towers are chosen and where we can put them within the city limits. And this way, it won't feel as though one particular community is targeted of why we are choosing to put it on Clubhouse Drive, in a P section, in the F section, in the C section, in sailboat country, that we have Nick explain from his level of knowledge where the towers can be placed, so people don't feel that their community is targeted. And I think this information should come from Nick and not from me or not from anybody else on the board, since Nick has the knowledge that I don't even come and bring to this council. And that's what I want to bring forth tonight.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker.
Good evening. My name is Harold Maldonado. I'm from 63 Parodic Lane. I've been here in Palm Coast since 1976. Never had no problems with these builders or anything. Now we got 2 brand new houses filled right in front of my house, and the whole street gets flooded like the Panama Canal. And I don't know if you got a cap on the limit or how much dirt can you put in, but this house is on an island by itself. And I hope something's done about this and this doesn't continue here in Palm Coast. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comment. Any final speakers during this public comment? Seeing no one come, yes, ma'am.
Good evening. My name is Paula Poulin, and I live at 45 Ballard Lane. There was a house that was being built next to me, okay? And this is about the flooding. And they're probably about a foot up, okay? I complained constantly about it, okay? It's taken out my whole sidewall. I brought in dirt, spread it, put new dirt down, and everything. I recently sent an email to everyone, and Teresa responded to me out of 4 people. And then I got a message tonight, emailed to me, saying that someone's gonna come to my house and look at my property. But who's gonna pay for it? I don't know. And then I found out from my neighbor in the new build, that's a rental property, that now they're gonna put gutters on the house. That's not gonna take care of the problem. This is gonna persist until something is done about the builders bringing in that much dirt. And the builder on my home was Caspian next door. My house is in 1987. And it's just I just see it getting worse. Thank you, I have nothing further.
Thank you for your comment. Is there anyone else that would like to make public comment? Yes, sir.
Hello, how you doing? My name is Jeff Knotts. I live in the P section. I lived in Palm Coast about 3 different times. The first time was in the late 80s. It was a beautiful place. I loved it. It looked green, beautiful. People took care of their property. Second time was the late 90s. Still beautiful. People still took care of property. Nowadays, you can drive down the street and see trash everywhere. You got all these apartment complexes going everywhere, and what kind of people they're attracting? The people that care about this community, or people just staying because they got nowhere else to go? Maybe they need to do an audit and find out what's going on and where it's going. Because the residents, we're not getting what we need. We're the backbone of this town. And if somebody's got to stand up for us, it's always the little man. The little man's got to do it all. That's all I got to say. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Anyone else for public comment at this time? Seeing no one come forward, I will close public comment. City Council, do you want to, City Manager, first of all, you have contact with each of the speakers this evening?
I do, but also I do have some responses if City Council would
Please, go ahead.
extend that pleasure. So I didn't get everyone's name, but some of the responses that I have is, I believe Mr. Stansel noted about lights on Seminole Woods not being powered. We've actually provided to FPNL a inventory of lights throughout the city, and they are working on it. They have their challenges as well regarding, streamline of parts and personnel and things like that. But we have extended that information directly to FPNL. For Mr. Carr, We did take in consideration in the past about the truck ordinance, and we have been working directly with our Flagler County Sheriff's Office liaison on that. Actually transmitted some of those concerns on November 14th. Just a few more, Mayor, if I could. Mr. Seib and a lot of the members of the public speaking tonight were talking about these concerns of stormwater. And I just want, first of all, to say to Mr. Seib, if he's still here, thank you for his service on the Beautification Environmental Advisory Committee and volunteering his hours. Part of this overall process, and I heard about code changes, regulations, and we take those very seriously. It's not unique for us to not coordinate with stakeholders, and it's not just the builders, but insurance agents and other members that have a contributing interest in any code change we have, including members of the public. And just to reflect back on the Beautification and Environmental Advisory Committee, code changes come through committees, our boards, Planning, Land Development, Regulation Board, and ultimately the City Council. So there's numerous opportunities for the public to contribute to the process as well. Regarding the mosquitoes at Indian Trail Sports Complex, I know our team immediately started coordinating with the mosquito district specifically because they are the technical matter experts in this case, and I appreciate, Mr. Martin, you contributing to the conversation tonight and being a great collaborator on these matters in the city. And last, there was a mention also about an email that went out. So I escalated our coordination with members of the public on stormwater matters. That is why an email went out today, because it is a priority to us. It's not just because of timing, but it's because the task force is putting things into motion.
City Manager, thank you for that. Any additional comment?
I do.
Go ahead.
The person who spoke about spending $10,000 to put drainage in their property, I spoke with them last week, and I mean, that's a lot of money. But I'm glad they're taking care of their property. But at some point, we all may have to figure out something to help everyone in our community that's dealing with this unfortunate situation. But I was concerned about one thing, and I'm sure you would be too, and I hope we would pass this along to anyone that goes out and meets with our residents. Telling someone to sue their neighbors is not a good answer. And I would hope that we would advise employees that you're not attorneys. You know, you can recommend that maybe they seek legal counsel, but and these folks were very, very clear on this to me, and I believe them. And I just think that's a bad approach for us to take, and I would assume you agree with me on that.
Well, I agree with you about our customer service expectations and how we reach out and communicate technical information. I wasn't present. I don't know what actually was conversed, but I appreciate you bringing it up.
Yeah, I would just hope that any employees would realize that, you know, it's kind of not their place to say sue your neighbors. That's a bad thing to say, you know. The other thing I wanted to just ask about is Mr. McDonald brought up some building codes and engineering reports, and I'm not familiar with any of this. I don't know if any of us are, but I might want to ask our city manager or our city attorney if they have any knowledge of what he spoke about, because this is the first time I've heard this.
What is your question, Vice Mayor?
My question is, Mr. McDonald brought up building codes. He brought up the county oversees the state building codes.
My understanding was he brought up a question about inspection reports, which are available online.
Right, and he said that the city, he had requested those, and we weren't able to provide them.
Can't speak to that. That would be.
Well, that's why I'm asking our city managers. That's something that we should have, right?
We have a public records request process is run through our clerk's office.
Okay.
And so I'm not sure, Kaylee, if you're can provide any insight, because I know we have retention rules and regulations and when records are disposed versus what we have readily available.
You're absolutely correct. I would need to look into the situation a little bit further to be able to share the exact details of the response and the documents that were referenced.
Okay, that would be great. Again, this is all new to me, so I just want us to explore every opportunity. And if we're supposed to have those engineering reports, I would hope we would provide them. Thank you.
Councilwoman Bontieri, questions?
Thank you. First, I want to thank Mr. Martin for coming here tonight. You and I had a discussion the other night specifically about the mosquito issue, so I appreciate you looking into that. I appreciate you working with city manager on that. And Ms. Bevins, I appreciate you mentioning a few things that you and I have specifically talked about when it comes to the lights. Mr. Stencil brought up. That was an issue I believe somebody emailed me about. We did talk about that. It is being addressed and we recognize it. I want to speak generally about the people who fill out comment cards. I sincerely hope, and I trust that our city staff is following up with people, I sincerely hope none of these are falling through the cracks. Because I direct our citizens to fill out comment cards, specifically if they have a specific issue as to their address. And I rely on staff to make sure that they are following up with those individuals. So Ms. Worth, you said that you have not been contacted. I'm not city staff, so I will not speak on behalf of them, but it is imperative that our staff follow up on these. And I've directed residents, and I appreciate the ones who have done this, to reach out to me directly if they're experiencing any of these flooding issues. Those who have gotten a response from me personally, and I have forwarded your concerns on to our city manager, and she has confirmed with me that you have been put in on our list for staff to follow up with. I know the list is getting larger, and so it is taking time to get to everybody, but if you feel your concerns are not being addressed because you filled out comment cards and no one's gotten back to you, please just email me, because you will get a response from me. And those of you who have, I appreciate you doing that. With regards specifically to Mr. Stone, you brought up Mr. Cryer. And I take particular pause with that. Mr. Cryer was a very important individual in our community. He did work very hard. And this city council and our staff has made it a priority to look at road safety, to pay for a speed study, to reconsider medians on Florida Park Drive in order to increase safety. I understand these things take time, but we are in the process of getting that speed study done, of looking at lowering speed limits, of looking at adding medians onto our busy streets. So please, when you come up and you say things, reach out to us and ask for a status update on the things that are a part of our strategic action plan, because there are actions being taken on your behalf. We all considered the work that Mr. Cryer did very important, and we specifically put in our strategic action plan things to make sure we're addressing road safety. So if you have any questions, if you want to follow up on that, if you want a status update, by all means reach out to us and we will directly give you an update on that. I would ask for an update, city manager, on where the audit process is, because we talked about this yesterday as well.
Yeah, as I believe I shared with City Council when the question came up previously, that we're in the process of refining the scope and the qualifications for the firm, because this is a unique, element of what services can be provided for. And what I mentioned, I believe, to City Council as an update was that we were going to have a presentation from the selected firm to basically tell you what a forensic audit does and help discuss what, the scope would look like. So we're not going out for an audit. We're going out for a professional to come to City Council by your request to give deeper detail into what that means.
Thank you, I appreciate that. And then the last thing, this is to your point, Mr. Vice Mayor, with regards to the county commissioners having say over our code. I think Mr. McDonough brought this up. I actually asked City Manager a few weeks ago if we've talked to the county on whether or not they have some height limitations in their code that we can rely on or maybe piggyback off of. Has that been done yet?
To the question, and I believe my response previously, is that the county conditions are unique to what our standard is, but we will have that conversation.
Yeah, if we could, and because I do want that to be considered as we look at our own technical manual for this amendment that's necessary for these info lots. Thank you.
And I just, since you mentioned the audit, what we're looking for is just a company to come in and give us a broad sort of, here's what we do, here's what's involved, here's an expected cost sort of thing. It's just basically an education for us.
That is what City Council asked for,
You had
yes.
mentioned you were putting that out to bid before, is that correct?
That is let's just use that term, right? To seek interest from professionals in this industry.
We're not really expecting to pay a company just to come in and give us a
Yes,
brief.
we are.
And are there not companies out there that would do this just to get our business for free?
Well, Vice Mayor, the concern is that we want to make sure we have the qualifications, not that we're getting it for free.
Okay.
I think
Oh,
council has a
Mesa.
comment. Vice Mayor, she
The
had
attorney,
mentioned
yes.
this to you before.
Yes, I mean, if we, asking someone to come in and give us advice for free, then if we were to actually move forward with the process, those firms would be potentially precluded from
That because
from
we
the
didn't put it out.
process.
And the reason I asked this is I had people this week asking me, why would you pay? If you're looking at hiring
Right.
someone, wouldn't they want to compete? And so
Right.
that's why I wanted to
Right.
make sure this was perfectly clear
Right.
as to how this would move forward and why we just simply don't do that. That's what thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilwoman Hyder, any comments on the
Yes,
public
I
comment?
do
Go
have a
ahead.
brief comment. First off, I'd like to thank everyone for coming out and voicing your opinions about everything that's going on here in the city. And mainly, I just want to mention about the flooding in the yards. I really take that seriously, and I am hoping that we here at the city are able to do something sooner than later, because in particular, there's one lady sitting out in the audience that brought this situation to my attention probably before I was in office. I wasn't quite sure what to do about it, but she's sitting here tonight, and I know it's been probably going on 2 years now that she brought it to my attention the first time. And now I'm looking out at an audience of so many people that are having this same problem. And when I heard it from her, it was just her problem at the time. Now it's becoming a problem that's around the city. So I am hoping that the city is listening. And the woman that mentioned about there being only 26 properties, when that was mentioned last week, or at the last city council meeting, I also felt there has to be more than that. I thank you for bringing that up, but I do hope that the city is able to do something about this situation much sooner. I mean, a year is a long time from now, and for our citizens to have to go through this for another year, it's just going to create more damage, more problems in the city, and we're gonna just have more people showing up here at the council making complaints about it. So I'm just hoping that we can do something sooner.
Okay. With that, we'll move to minutes from prior meetings. Item number E on your agenda. I'd ask for a motion to approve the
make a
minutes
motion to
of,
approve.
let me finish. Approval for the minutes of the November 7th, 2023 business meeting. Vice Mayor has made a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Councilwoman Pontieri has seconded. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Are there any opposed? Does the clerk have the count?
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Similarly, the meeting of November the 14th, 2023, a workshop meeting.
Can I say
Vice
it
Ma-
now?
Yes.
You sure?
Yes, I am.
I'm gonna let Teresa do
Okay.
it.
Vice Mayor has the motion, and Councilwoman Pontieri, you making a second? All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Are there any opposed?
The motion passes unanimously.
Meeting of November the 14th, a special business meeting. Councilwoman Pontieri, are you making a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
A motion to approve. Vice Mayor, are you making a motion to second?
I am.
I have a motion to second. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Are there any opposed?
The motion passes
Thank you. And
unanimously.
finally, thank you for your patience. Meeting of November the 28th, a special workshop meeting. May I have a motion to approve?
I'll make that motion.
Vice Mayor's made a motion to approve the minutes. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a second from Councilwoman Pontieri. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Are there any opposed?
The motion passes unanimously.
Very good, thank you. We have one proclamation this evening. I am very pleased to offer a proclamation this evening, which we don't get to do very often, at least not through our history, because we have a relatively young history. But it seems like as we move forward, we have many problems to solve, and we are listening carefully to our residents. And as my fellow council members suggested this evening, that we get busy and solve these, but it's also fun to take a pause just for a moment, especially for you younger folks and their parents in the audience, to know that there is something here in the city of Palm Coast which is just about as big as it can possibly get in all of Florida. So with that, I'm going to offer a proclamation, whereas the Palm Coast Yacht Club is proud to annually organize the Palm Coast Holiday Boat Parade, one of our area's major holiday events. And whereas the Palm Coast Yacht Club, which offers social and nautical education activities for all who love boating, inaugurated the boat parade in 1983 and has been at the helm for the past 40 years. And whereas the 2023 Holiday Parade will respectfully honor the memory of Al Cryer. One of the city's most beloved citizens and respected community advocates. And whereas the parade will be led by Al Cryer's 18-foot Herreshoff Pilot, which has been generously donated by his family to the Palm Coast Yacht Club. And whereas boaters and fans will be treated to the colorful and festive decorations adorning so many parade vessels led by Grand Marshals David Alphen and Flagler County Sheriff Rick Staley. And whereas the parade begins at 6 p.m. on Saturday, December the 9th, at the Cochise Waterway and heads south to the Grand Haven Gazebo before turning back to return to the home port. And whereas hundreds of community members line the canals each season looking forward to cheering a true holiday tradition on the waters in Palm Coast. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed by the mayor and the city council of the city of Palm Coast that December the 9th, 2023 be officially designated as Palm Coast Holiday Boat Parade. And with that, I'm going to let you, Sarah, brag on what our ranking is.
Well, I think that we are definitely the largest boat parade in Florida,
So that's the largest boat parade in all of the state of Florida.
and quite possibly the second largest boat parade in the entire
All right, well,
United States.
All right, we'll take Florida for now. We'll work on the rest.
We're working on, actually, the only thing that rivals us is Newport Beach at about 150 boats, and their numbers aren't too clear either, and Newport, Rhode Island, and nothing else comes close except us. So we have 104 boats this year.
Now, I have to say, and I know Sarah, who I think everyone in the audience probably knows Sarah one way or another, has really done all of the work to make this happen, along with all of her fellow members of the parade. But the countless hours, I can't tell you how much time and effort and energy has gone into this, literally, and I know you know this, every single day, and we appreciate you very much for putting us on the map for something that is just so special. So thank you. So
Thank
please
you.
accept this
Thank
proclamation.
you. I will be giving this to Al Cryer's family on Saturday, and we're very proud to have been able to do this for him and in his honor. But I do have some voters here who are in.
Stand up, all
Stand up.
voters.
Thank you very much for coming. These are the guys who made it, these
Come on
are
up,
the
voters.
people who make it happen.
Come on up.
But I also want to read just a real quick list.
Go
It's
ahead.
only going to take about 15 minutes. Kendra Iannotti, Brittany Kershaw, Jared Dawson, Denise Bevan, Shanice Buffin, James Hurst, Lauren Johnston, Caitlin Anderson, Brittany McDermott, James Marandino of European Village, Pia Thomas, John Sierra, John Campion of Daytona State College, Commander Scott Vetter, Master Deputy Jeff Turner, Commander Michael Lutz, Commander Jeremy Chambers, and Commander Philip Randolph. There are many, many more who've really helped me on this, and of course, Shanda Kennedy of Towboat USA, Nathan Brock of the Florida Fish and Wildlife Commission, Florida Inland Navigational District, Janet Zimmerman and Randy Stapleford. I want to acknowledge Brian McMillan and his staff at the Palm Coast Observer, David Ayers, Kirk Keller, and so many others at Flagler Broadcasting, and Vern Shank, Pierre Tristan at Flagler Live, Danny, it goes on, Danny Anderson at Flagler Weekly, the folks at First Coast News and Channel 13, and West Marine. They've supported us all along, and of course, Robert Eulis. He's my go-to guy. He's for everything. Thank you.
Your wife deserves a hug. Good job.
Thank you.
All right, let's
So anyway, we thank you all. Go Palm Coast. This is great.
Mr. Come Please, I hope everybody will turn out.
Much easier. My personal cell is on that card.
City council members, there's been a request if we could move an agenda item from
Item number 9, the planning our parks.
constraint. Is that okay with everybody?
There's kids here for
Yeah,
this.
is that
All
okay?
right, so if we could move it up before ordinances second read, this is item number 9.
Right.
On the agenda under resolutions.
So show me where it goes. Oh, okay, so I have consensus to go ahead and move that. So would you go ahead and read it in?
Okay, sure. Okay, item number I-9 will be heard now by consensus of the city council. Hooray! This is a resolution concerning the Parks and Recreation Master Plan. A resolution of the City Council of the City of Palm Coast, Florida, approving the 2023 Parks and Recreation Master Plan, repealing and replacing Resolution 2009-11 concerning the Recreation and Parks Facilities Master Plan, providing for implementing actions, severability, conflicts, and an effective date.
Mr. Hurst, go ahead.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Brittany McDermott, the Deputy Director for Parks and Recreation. I'm joined here by James Hurst, Director of Parks and Recreation, and we are here for the exciting milestone to present the final report for the Parks Master Plan. Just a quick refresher, this process started about a year ago as City Council's direction of Council Priority B2, which was to identify local recreation demands to balance the need of regional activity centers, specifically prioritizing projects on the Parks and Recreation Capital Improvement Plan. From there, we implemented an interlocal agreement between the City of Palm Coast and Flagler County to ensure that this was a county-wide collaborative effort. And we put together a team comprised of both City of Palm Coast and Flagler County staff members who've worked diligently on this throughout the process.
We'll go quickly through the timeline of events for this Parks Master Plan. So as Brittany said, a year ago we started with the Master Services Agreement, which was approved. On January 5th, we had the kickoff meeting with the project team, and then we had public engagement in February, internal review findings that was presented on May 31st to June 2nd, and then the findings summary was presented on June 20th. Goals and objectives was presented on August 8th, And then October 17th was the draft plan presented to council as well.
And then, of course, that brings us here tonight, but just a quick follow-up from our last presentation in October. There were a few items that came up that we wanted to be sure to address before we move forward. One was sports fields. I know it was brought up at the last meeting that rectangular fields were not specifically mentioned. We did make sure to double-check all of our reports. Those were definitely identified as a priority along with the diamond fields, and it was highlighted in the June 20th presentation. And also a reminder that Ms. Lauren Johnson will be bringing the sports feasibility study update next week, so you'll get some additional information through that process as well. There was also another item brought up about future growth and making sure that we're staying in touch with residents' priorities. It was definitely recommended by the consultant Barry Dunn that we revisit that engagement portion every 5 years for that very reason, to make sure we are staying in touch with our current residents. And also there was a full trends and demographics report that was included and submitted as part of this and is also highlighted in the final report and summarized. That really helps us to stay in touch with not only recreation trends to ensure we're staying on top of what the needs are just nationally, but also locally, some population projection growth and things like that. And then, of course, there was an item brought up about funding mechanisms. How can we ensure that we're getting some of these priorities accomplished? So we are working closely with Barry Dunn. They're taking us through what they sort of call a funding exercise to help us identify some opportunities that maybe we aren't tapping into, as well as always looking at grants, sponsorships, partnerships that we can really help to grow on top of what we have in our CIP process. Were there any questions on any of those items before we move on?
Questions from city council members? Not yet, no.
Okay, thank you.
The following reports were presented to council, so I was going to briefly touch on each one of those. So the first three reports, the survey, social pinpoint engagement, was more of our outreach reports that we had leadership meetings. We also did the social pinpoint, which was an online interactive portal which had 305 users utilize it, and then we also sent surveys out to residents either through mail or email as well. Brittany quickly touched on the trends and demographics report, and this was developed to analyze the household and economic data for the city of Palm Coast, and this also will help us provide potential market areas and recreation services and programs that can be used in those areas. We had the GRASP report. That is a inventory that was compiled, and it included data from all our parks facilities. Barry Dunn did come on site and visited each park. And then in there we saw individual components and scorings, and then each was evaluated and scored. The visioning exercise, that focused on combining the engagement reports, the GRASP reports, and neighborhood access. This helped us kind of prioritize our park system. Some of the big takeaways was taking care of what we have, and then also prioritizing gaps within our park system. And this will help us address those low or no service areas that were recognized in the report. Barry Dunn also again came on site and did a maintenance analysis. So they did a day with our maintenance staff for both parks and the trails, but also the fields. And then in that analyzation, they looked at the community expectations and best industry practices and how our staffing is structured. And then also we had the action table. This was drawn from public input, inventory, level of service, feedback from the master planning committee, and this gave us our goals, objectives, and prioritization for the Parks and Recreation. And then lastly, we had the trails assessment. Miller Leg, which was associated with Barry Dunn. They came on site, did an analysis on our existing trail system. This involves site visits, data collection of the trails, and evaluated each of our trails and accesses. And then there was a scoring system to evaluate the trail components, comfort, convenience, and overall design. And then kind of going through this project, staff internally looked at some things that we could probably accomplish prior to the completion and adoption of this plan. And so we went ahead and worked on our QR codes on the trails. So Waterfront Park, that was a great opportunity for us to bring back those QR codes. So you'll see those at Waterfront Park and going along the Intercoastal Waterway. We also saw the Find grant opportunities. We continue working with Find to get those opportunities for our parks, as water sports was one of the main priorities for in the plan. And then just recently, we met with the National Park Service and the Rivers, Trails, and I can't even say this word. Conservation Assistance Program. This resulted in an on-site visit, which was really cool. We got to ride the trails, kind of get their input on our trails. They were very impressed with us. So that we'll continue to work on this relationship as well.
And that does bring us to the final slide in our presentation. We recommend that City Council adopt the final plan through a resolution. We did have a previous Parks Master Plan, and that needs to be replaced with this current one through the resolution. We just want to bring your attention to Chapter 6 again, because that really did cover the action plan and prioritization piece, which really spoke back to the council priority. Again, you've already received that document. That was reviewed in a previous presentation. So the final plan is really just a summary of all the reports that we've already shared and reviewed. From there, that's not obviously the final step. We're not just going to put this on a shelf, so to speak. City staff will be integrating this plan into their operations. We want to make sure that all new staff, current staff are well aware of what this plan entails and how we need to move forward. One of the recommendations from Barry Dunn is to assign a staff champion to the different priorities. So that is something we plan to implement, as well as also making sure the public is well aware of this plan and that it's readily accessible through the city website and promoting the progress as we make steps towards this. Of course, the primary focus of the plan is maintaining and improving parks, facilities, programs, and services while balancing the expansion of open space and parks as our community grows. And this needs to be done through funding, availability, and community support. Those will play significant roles in the future planning efforts. So we will be sure to work within the confines of our capital improvement plan process and prioritizing those, but also speaking back to what we mentioned earlier, looking for alternatives, whether it be grants or some other funding measures that we haven't considered before, and making sure that you are well aware of every step of that. And then, of course, city staff will continue collaborating with Flagler County. This was a county-wide Parks Master Plan, so we'll continue that partnership and collaboration that we really developed through that process. And again, that Chapter 6 action plan very well laid that out of what was more of a city-led initiative, what was more of a county-led initiative, and what were the items that we really needed to continue collaborating and working on together. So we will fall back on that as well.
So I'm pretty sure Mad Dogs is chomping at the bit to make a comment, but before we get to public comment, has this presentation been given to the county?
Not yet. Theirs is scheduled for the 18th.
For the 18th.
Yep.
So they'll see this same presentation, so you've got a true collaboration ongoing between the city and the county, not recognizing the municipal boundaries, so we're watching our parks throughout the entire county of Flagler. Okay.
Correct, and we've directly shared this presentation with our contact, Mr. Lagacy, with the county, so he's well aware of what's been presented. I believe he may even be watching tonight. He's away at training, or he would have been here tonight, but yeah.
Thank you for that. I would ask City Council member, any questions or comments right now before I throw it out to the public?
I'll hold my comment until after public.
No comment.
Public comment. Would you like to comment on the report? I have that feeling.
I don't have much to say about it. Jared Maxwell from Palm Coast.
Introduce your folks first.
Mad Dogs flag football, and I know we got baseball, but I'm not sure who they're with, though.
Okay, good enough.
Palm Coast Little League, there we go. All right, so I don't have much to say about this right here, but I do want to go back. There was in the Observer this past week a lady who I finally got to speak with, Marion Petruzzi, I believe is how you say her name. Apparently we've been going back and forth for quite a few years, and we were finally able to speak this past week. Very nice lady. Her biggest complaint is the lights at Ralph Carter Park, and after our conversation, I don't disagree with her concerns about the light, pollution, the traffic, the noise. I wouldn't want a sports complex in my backyard either. I wouldn't want that amount of people right behind my house every night of the week either. However, the kids got to take priority. That's not our fault that that park is there. That just seems to be the only option our kids have in this city to play at night. There is Indian Trails, but that's more for state tournaments, local tournaments, and our game day field. With that being said, I don't know how long this plan's going to work out where we get a sports complex one day. I know it's not going to be this year. I know it might not even be 5 years. But I can talk for Mad Dogs, and I'm sure other leagues here, that we're happy that there's at least something moving forward, that we have something to rely on moving down the road. And more of an immediate fix, which isn't cheap, but something that's more realistic, is getting other city fields in Palm Coast with lights on them, so that we're all not at just one field fighting over space throughout the year. That's all I got. Appreciate you guys. Thank you.
We appreciate your energizing your group and the community to continue this initiative, and you certainly have City Council's attention, and I think this study is a really good step forward, and I appreciate the effort that staff put in. Comments? I guess first, are there any other members of the public that would like to comment at this time on this item? Yes, ma'am.
Good evening, folks. My name is Sharon Holloway. I'm with Special Olympics, and I live in Beach Village Apartments. So I'm a coach with Special Olympics, and I am here today joining the rest of these parents, coaches, athletes, and advocates. And I stand in solidarity with each of them in the interest of improving our parks and facilities for this city. My son Elijah is an athlete, and as are many of his closest friends. I'm not here to necessarily talk about the condition of our fields, the lack of lights, or the ongoing updates that are desperately needed. But I am here to talk about what Special Olympics and other programs like Special Olympics has done for athletes by being able to offer them Olympic-type sports or structured sports in a competitive setting. For our recent holiday project, we asked our athletes, volunteers, and coaches, what does Special Olympics mean to you? And some of their responses are pretty amazing. From some of our athletes, we got brave, hope, family. Family, hope, and fun. I'm not alone, I have best friends. I get to get along with other people, self-motivation and fun. One happy family, always winners. I love being with my friends. Special Olympics is a family. Sports helps people get closer to God. Life skills, learning, fun, and I get to do things that I normally can't, okay? From some of our coaches, seeing the sparkle in an athlete's eyes and knowing that you made a difference. Smiles, friendship, understanding, conquering fear. Love, enjoyment, skills, friendship, freedom, and the ability to express oneself in a safe environment. From some of our volunteers, you got support, friends, family, opportunity for all, enter as a stranger and leave as a family. These responses and many more like them are why sports programs like Special Olympics are changing lives in so many households in this community. We have seen athletes firsthand develop into amazing young adults, serving in our communities, sitting at the table of opportunity in the workplace, and developing life skills that allow them to strive for and achieve independence. You might see them at the grocery store, at a restaurant, or just about anywhere else. These athletes need parks and facilities that are equipped to give them to space to achieve their life goals. Our job as coaches is to give them a structured environment for them to blossom and grow. But our city needs to help them fulfill that mission. For them, it's just not about sports, it's their futures that are on the line.
Thank you for your comments. Are there any other members? Yes.
I'm Mike Martin, Chairman of East Flag Mosquito Control District. I just want to point out, and I totally support we need more playing fields, but I just want to point out that when you start putting lights on playing fields, you're going to start attracting a lot more mosquitoes. So I think it's important that the city and the Parks Department keep us kind of in the loop. We can try to figure out the best solution because we don't need more Indian Trail problems. So thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
My name is Tiffany Schmidt, and I'm the president of Palm Coast Little League. And I just wanted to bring a couple things to your attention tonight of our needs. I know you're very aware of the lights for fields 5 through 8. Our numbers are growing very fast. Last fall of 2022, we had 230 registrations. This fall, we had 389. Last spring, we had close to 500, and this spring, we're gearing towards over 600. So putting lights on those 4 extra fields so we can have more teams practicing and more games being played, if we have rain makeups we need to make, would be very helpful. A lot of our families didn't get to play a lot of games this last fall because of the rain and the weather, and we didn't have time to make them up, so having lights on those fields would be helpful, as well as safety. Palm Coast's #1 priority is safety of our family members and our players out there on the fields. And one night this last fall, it was dark over there, and there were games being played on the other 4 fields, and 3 little girls had walked over into the dark fields, and there was a man in the dugout that tried to lure them in. They came running back to us, very terrified and scared, so even having lights there is a good option for safety. A couple of our fields, fields 1 through 4, are pretty old. They're being used all the time. We've had a couple injuries this last spring. There's a lip on field 2, and 2 different injuries happened within a week of each other where the ball took a bad hop and nailed a kid in the jaw, and he had to have surgery. And then another one took one in the nose, and he also had to have surgery. I just don't like to see our players get hurt, so I know those fields the infield needs to be redone here soon. So if we could look up into that, that would be great, so we don't have any more injuries like that, and then our players can't play. 2 of those players didn't get to play in All-Stars because of their injuries. I also just want to let you know how amazing the Indian Trail Sports Complex maintenance crew is. The Park and Rec crew there have been amazing this spring season and fall season with getting our fields ready. I was at the fields one night, and it was full of puddles, and I was like, we're not gonna play. And the next morning, they were ready to play. They had them all ready for us. They worked so very hard for us, and I just want you guys to know how amazing they are. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Anyone else? Yes, sir?
First wanted to, Chris Kinsella, Palm Coast Little League. First wanted to thank you for moving this up. I know you saw me checking my clock for bedtime. But I just want to reiterate some of what Tiffany was going through and kind of just express my perspective. So I'm a parent of 4. I coach 2 soccer teams up there, 3 baseball teams, softball, and I'm on the board. So we spend 6 nights out of the week up there during the season, in the spring and the fall. We're up there 6 nights out of 7. So we do homework up there, we eat dinner up there, and we play ball up there. And this picture that is being painted of Palm Coast, so we talked about the boat parade. I thought that was neat to hear how we were 2nd in the nation, 1st in Florida. For our boat parade. I think that's neat, and I think we should be proud of that. I think we should also be proud of our sports, our young children. And Palm Coast is doing something really neat with these kids. And I think we have an opportunity to show off what we can do up there. So we're spending the extra money on the nice hats. We're really investing in our coaches and our umpires, things like that. So I think we share the same values you guys have. We want Palm Coast to stand out for the right reasons, and I just think that support for the park systems would be great, so we appreciate it.
Appreciate your comments. Thank you.
Hi there, Tiffany Wiggin, Director of Florida Elite Soccer Academy. Just to reiterate with the rest of my Sports Alliance members that are here with us today, we have a need for rectangular and grass fields even at this moment. I know it's talked about in the Parks and Rec Master Plan, but I just really want you guys to hear and understand how much field space is needed currently at this time. For all of the grass sports, not only are we having to take away time from all of our organizations to share field space, but we're taking away from our own citizens. We're constantly having to tell citizens they can't utilize this field space or green space because it is taken by our youth, and they do take priority, and I'm glad that we take priority with our youth. They deserve it. But we are running out of green field space, and I hope you guys in the master plan take into consideration that we could do something really, really great with our kids and this community by providing a field space where we could continue to host these tournaments on an even larger scale than we already are. We have an opportunity. We already have the infrastructure for the programs here. We literally just need the space. We can bring the teams. We can bring the tourism. We can bring the community. So I hope you guys can help us with providing the space. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Yes, ma'am.
My name is Kimberly Harrell, and I'm a coach with Flagler County Special Olympics. My daughter, Annalise Harrell, has a traumatic brain injury and a cognitive delay, which has caused a disconnect through her early childhood when it came to being involved in community and team sports. Special Olympics has allowed my daughter to grow as an athlete and as a person. I coach cheer, bowling, and swim teams locally and have used several facilities in the area. We use the pool from the end of May until September. Unfortunately, because of the facility's calendar and heating the pool, we are only able to practice on Saturdays up until the last 6 weeks of our season, at which time we have to move to Thursdays, which proves difficult for my athletes with muscular issues as they are tired from school all day and do not have the physical ability to practice. As far as our indoor sports go, it makes it difficult to offer a full season when the schools are not open during breaks, so we do not have the ability to have practice on those days. There are so many sports that Special Olympics Florida offers as a whole that we do not have here in Flagler County because of lack of facilities to have these practices. Watching these athletes learn and grow has become outgoing members of our community is the most amazing joy I've ever felt.
Thank you for your comment. Yes, ma'am.
Sorry, Donna McGavin again. When I approached the podium, I tried to bring you solutions rather than problems. And as I work with Ms. Bevan and her team, I try to bring them new ideas. And I brought an idea up approximately a year ago, that when we approach the podium, you thank us for our comment, and then I asked for the answers to be put somewhere on the website, because when you get back to people individually, we don't know as an audience and a participant what the answer was, that the community doesn't know, only that one person gets the answer. So I'm hoping the question I give to you, you'll answer for me directly tonight. These people that are going to these sports fields are complaining about the mosquitoes, but in my tax bill is a line item that we pay for the mosquito spraying that comes from the county. So has that ceased and desist that now we don't get that county spraying of the mosquitoes anymore? Because if we have that, why are they experiencing such a problem with the mosquito spraying on all of these fields? And if there's a specific swamp area, can't they deluge that with some kind of chemical that then these children are not exposed to this?
So I appreciate the question. What I'm going to do is I'm going to direct you to the other government, which would be the gentleman right there who can help you
That's
with
great.
your
He can
questions.
take up the
because
time.
that would be a
Okay.
separate government, but he's better able to answer your specific questions.
Okay, that'd be
Okay?
great, because this way the children are, because this is all over the papers that these mosquitoes could carry terrible diseases for these children. So I'd like to see that addressed.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
I just want to make sure that everybody knows that when you pay your taxes in your property tax bill, you're not paying them to the county. The East Flagler Mosquito Control District is an independent special district. We set our own millage rate, and our responsibility is to protect people from mosquito-borne diseases. Since I took office in January 2021, there has not been a single verified case of a mosquito-borne disease in Flagler County. There have been in Volusia, there have been in other counties of the state, not in Flagler.
Okay. Thank you for your efforts. And if you would follow up with the resident, we'd appreciate that. Thank you. Anyone else regarding the sports study that we are getting ready to review here? Seeing no one come forward, I'll close public comment and come back to the dais for questions or comments.
I have no comments or anything on this. I'm ready to make a motion to approve it.
Let's go.
But I did have a question, though, since we're speaking of
Go ahead.
park and recreations. When will you guys be coming back to us with the updated fee schedule?
For golf?
Yes.
We're still working through some solutions, talking with residents. We should be getting to back soon.
In next month maybe, or so, roughly?
It's hard to say at this time. Yeah.
Okay, just keep me up to date on that, I'd appreciate it. I have no other questions.
Before motion, questions on the study?
I do have a few questions.
ahead.
I want to address some of the public comments. So first of all, thank you to all the sports organizations that came out, and thank you to the kiddos who are being very well behaved. I attribute that to discipline from sports, so thank you for that. To the Special Olympics folks, I really would like to see the city get more involved and maybe use our communications team to give you all more visibility. So if you can get with Brittany Kershaw in the back, and also you're welcome to email me. I grew up volunteering for Special Olympics. I think what you all do is fantastic. So please make sure we're giving you the visibility you deserve. And I think what we probably up here have seen tonight is that we have in our community something that we cannot create, and that's people who are willing to invest in our youth, and we really need to take advantage of that. So I would like to see in our plan that we're coming up with, or I guess that we're going to start putting into action, a continuous maintenance schedule and upkeep of our fields prioritized. Yep. And this isn't just for our youth groups, but it can also bring in sports tourism. I know for a fact we're missing out on tournaments. We're missing out on passive dollars that could come into our community because we don't have the space and the facilities to host great tournaments. And as an athlete that grew up traveling in sports, I know that parents go above and beyond to make sure their kids can play in sports. And they will travel. And so if we can provide that not only for our local community, but give our local children an opportunity to compete at a higher level, and then also bring in that sports tourism, we need to really invest in that. So I would hope I get consensus from my council up here. Some of the things that I specifically saw in the report that I had some questions about, I know in Chapter 4, it talks about adding some full-time employees to make sure we're keeping up with field maintenance. I first of all want to say thank you to our staff. I know I've met with you guys a few times as well as our maintenance crew, and they've been super dedicated to paying attention to the needs of our sports organizations, trying to do what we can in a fiscally responsible way to keep those fields maintained. I'm looking forward to seeing Ralph Carter Park fixed in May. I know we're regrading, we're providing drainage, and that's a much needed thing. So thank you for that, and thank you to our city manager for being diligent with me on that as well. As far as the lighting goes, I also understand that we're getting those domes for Ralph Carter Park. City manager, if you could comment on that for me.
Yeah, I think they're referenced as visors, is the actual device that we're looking at implementing. And I see James wants to pop into the conversation.
Yeah, so we do have some visors that Musco has provided us that could possibly help at Ralph Carter Park. Along with the visors would be some realignment as well. But then we're also looking with FPL. I think there is some sort of grant opportunity that we're meeting with them pretty soon, and to discuss some LED lighting as well. Because LED, we would have to we can't really retrofit because of the heights of the poles. So we would have to have poles that are a little bit higher to really make sure the LED is shining down onto the field and creating a safe space for everyone. So that's kind of a couple things in the work for Ralph Carter Park, which would be kind of part of the project.
Yeah, I don't know that retrofitting for our RC Park for LED is probably the most fiscally responsible way to go about that. I think probably the visors is, but maybe for the future lighting, I know the president of the Little League team, is she still here? Sorry, raise your hand. Thank you. Mentioned needing lighting at other fields, so if we can maybe look into the LED lights.
Yeah, with FPL, I think it's just not Ralph Carter as well as or other sport lighting around the city and all the different parks, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's just not one park.
So I guess my overall question is, what report or deliverable can we expect from staff, and on what kind of timeline to start putting this plan of action into place? And I specifically would like to see in the priority list, I think the fields were listed as like 1.12 in Chapter 6 of the plan. I would like to see that moved up because, I think that we have a lot of trails. I know that signage needs to be improved on the trails, and we're looking to do that through QR codes. I think that's brilliant. And it's a pretty, I think, probably quick and fiscally responsible thing, way to go about doing it, but really moving up the fields, because I think here in Palm Coast, we, as a group, have tried to focus on bringing in younger families and improving our workforce, and if we want to do that, we have to cater to our youth. There's no other way around it. I mean, they need a place to play sports. So I would like to see a plan with deliverables and a schedule of how we're going to start implementing this, and I would really like to see the rectangular and diamond fields moved up for soccer, football, and baseball. So I guess my question is, what do you all plan to do at this point so that we can know exactly what's being budgeted for what and on what timeline?
I would say that's exactly the steps we plan to move forward with. We mentioned making sure to get with our staff and go through the priority list, assign staff champions, and that way we really can schedule this out. Of course, we would work with our CIP process as well, and I think that would greatly help to see which priorities are put with which fiscal year.
And then who is in charge for Parks and Rec for looking for and writing grants?
I would say it's a joint shared effort, and we also consult with the city's grant team.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I know one of our strategic action priorities was to hire a full-time dedicated grant writer, and it seems like that's something that we could probably benefit for, specifically for Parks and Rec. So I don't want that to drop off the radar for council here, but just curious as to how that dichotomy of work works in your department.
City Manager?
City Council is going to receive a comprehensive presentation in January with updates on all your strategic priorities going into your next visioning process for the next fiscal year.
Okay, perfect. So thank you guys for the work that you've done. Thank you to Barry Dunn, I think was the contractor. And I look forward to seeing what you all can do with the county in conjunction with them as well. And I appreciate the time and effort that's been put into this.
So just to elevate your suggestion on prioritizations, obviously, wrapping Special Olympics for one and perhaps some of the other items into your strategic action priorities would be a very good way to elevate their prioritization. And City Manager, we have another Parks and Rec presentation coming to us in 2 weeks, I believe. Next week, which will start to address the inventory issue, because, y'all have said, we need more space. So please come back to that meeting, or at least listen to it on the recorded side, so that we can then address the additional square footage and geography that's going to be needed in order to accommodate all of these players for the future. So great. Comments?
Yes, I'd like to just say thank you and recognize the sports teams and the coaches, and thank you for all that you do for our young people in the community. I do know how important sports are in the lives of our young people, especially being that I have a nephew that was in the Super Bowl with the New England Patriots in 2018. So I know what you're doing, and I know that it's good work, and I know that it's good for our young people. It will take them a long way in life. And also for the young lady with the Special Olympics, thank you for bringing that up for the city, and I look forward to working with you.
Very good. I would ask City Council for a motion at this time.
I will make the motion approving the Park and Recreation Master Plan.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any additional direction you need attached to the motion at this time?
No, we do not.
Any additional comments by City Council? All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Are there any opposed?
The motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you so much for the conversation.
Mayor, if I may inject here, items number H7 and I8, so items number 7 and 8, it's my understanding, and those items are concerning the amendment to the Town Center at Palm Coast Planned Unit Development Agreement and the amendment to the Town Center at Palm Coast Development of Regional Impact Development Order. Those two items, there's been a request to the clerk to continue those, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And there's been no date certain given, so these two items are going to be continued and they'll be renoticed. So I'm going to repeat that again. If there's anyone here for items 7 and 8, those items will be continued and will be renoticed at a time in the future.
Hold on one second.
Yeah, date specifically was January 2nd.
Oh, I'm sorry,
Yes,
there
okay.
was
Just
a
wanna
date
correct that.
specific,
What is
okay.
that? Say it again, please, so everybody gets it.
January 2nd,
Continued until
Business meeting.
January the 2nd.
yes.
2024.
For both items, yes.
Yes, okay, sorry about that.
That's
I'm
okay.
corrected, no problem.
Thank you, Counselor. Okay.
You're welcome.
Okay, so we have voted on, good job, everybody, appreciate that. All right, we now move to our next presentation, where are we?
We're on item number G3. This is ordinances,
Yep.
second read.
If you go ahead and read that.
Sure. This is an ordinance concerning Old Kings Village Comprehensive Plan Amendment Application Number 5505. An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Palm Coast, Florida, providing for the amendment of the City of Palm Coast 2035 Comprehensive Plan as previously amended pursuant to Section 163 Florida statutes, amending the future land use map flume designation for approximately 62.3 acres of certain real property from Flagler County designation of residential low density and commercial low intensity to City of Palm Coast designation of residential and mixed use, as described in more detail in the legal description, which is an exhibit to this ordinance, with site-specific policy to limit development to 210 dwelling units and 30,000 square feet of non-residential use, providing for conflicts, ratification of prior acts, codification, severability, and an effective date. City Council members, this is a legislative matter, for a comp plan amendment, and I'll hand it over to staff.
Thank you. Good evening, City Council. Ray Tyner, Deputy Chief Development Officer. This is a second read. This was a large-scale comprehensive plan amendment that had to go to state. Jose Papa will give the staff presentation. I do want to note before he starts his presentation that Mr. Papa has a master's degree in planning as well as over 20 years of planning experience. He is also a AICP certified planner. Then Jose will have the staff presentation.
Mr. Papa, go ahead, please proceed.
Good evening, Mayor and members of City Council. Jose Papa, Senior Planner for the Community Development Department. This is the first of two amendments regarding Old Kings Village, which is a parcel of approximately 62 acres, which was annexed into the city in September. It's currently vacant, other than a road steeplechase trail that runs through the property. It was approved in Flagler County as a PUD for 232 residential units and 36,000 square feet of commercial use. To the left, as you can see, is the current land use designation of residential, county designations of residential low density and commercial low intensity. The subject property under its current land use designation is limited to 36,000 square feet of commercial and limits on the types of use on the commercial parcel to no convenience stores, filling stations, or fast food restaurants. The proposed amendment will change a bulk of the property, approximately 60 acres, to residential, with a 2-acre parcel at the southwest corner being mixed use, which would allow commercial uses. And the development on this shall be limited to, along with a note on the future land use map, to limit the development to 210 residential units and 30,000 square feet of non-residential uses. As Mr. Tyner stated, this was transmitted to the various state agencies for a large-scale map amendment. We received no objections or comments from those state agencies. As presented in our staff report, we find that this proposed amendment has no significant impact on environmental resources in the area. The proposed designations are generally consistent with surrounding land uses. The amendment is consistent with other comprehensive plan policies, and that infrastructure will be made available to accommodate the property. Consistent with the recommendation of first reading, the Planning and Land Development Regulation Board found this application to be consistent with the comprehensive plan and recommended that the City Council approve the future land use map amendment from the county designations of residential low density, commercial low intensity, to City Palm Coast designation of residential mixed use, along with those site-specific policies to limit development on the subject property 210 dwelling units and 30,000 square feet of non-residential. The applicant is here and is available to answer questions.
City council members, does the applicant have a presentation or a summary?
This is related to the comprehensive plan amendment. There's a associated rezoning that you'll hear next. Over the last few months, nothing has changed since you last approved this. Again, it went to the state and it received approval. It is consistent with the comprehensive plan and adjacent land uses, and so we're here to answer any questions that you may have of us after we listen particularly to the community. So we're available to answer anything that you may have for me right now.
I guess the first question, can you bring us up to date? There was some discussion between the parties or not?
The HOA for the
Right.
adjacent property owner retained an attorney. They're here tonight to talk to you about that. We have
Okay.
made offers in which to amend and or limit our development, and those conversations are still ongoing. I think that we can talk about those, particularly with the PUD agreement that is before you next, and talk about what we have done to accommodate some of their concerns. But we do not have a formal executed agreement between the parties yet. Okay.
Questions for the applicant?
I have no questions.
I have a couple
Councilwoman Pontieri?
Yes, thank you. I don't know if this is more appropriate for staff or for you, Mr. Chimento, so I'll just ask it in general. There was a letter written to the city by the county that specifically had some concerns in it, and I think it really boiled down to ensuring there was an appropriate buffer and ensuring connectivity or the possibility of connectivity for a trail. My concern, and the letter was quite lengthy, so forgive me, I'm probably distilling it a little too much, but in my mind, those were the main things. I want to make sure what we're not doing is undermining the county at all by annexing property in and then changing the overall integrity of the property and things that will affect adjacent county land. So can either staff or you, Mr. Chimento, comment on how we might be alleviating those concerns that were specifically brought up by Ms. Petito in the county?
Certainly, yes. I've had a meeting with Adam Mengel, the planner that helped her write that letter. So, you know, the project was approved over a decade ago through a PUD. In the process, in our process, we have lowered the number of units and lowered the number of square footage of commercial than what was approved. The residents had raised to you before some concerns they have where going with straight zoning eliminated or alleviated some of the other concessions in the PUD, such as a limitation on the types of commercial uses on the commercial parcel up front. There is not a limitation on that in your zoning code. So your zoning code has permissible uses, and they were looking for some guidance on that. There are other things I'll let them talk about. As it relates to the county issues, they were most concerned about a 10-foot wide strip of land along Old Kings Road that would be dedicated to them. Presently, there is a conceptual master plan parallel with the city, and that has been one of the requirements of your staff. So that dedication is in there. There have been issues of buffers along Old Kings Road. It's one of the concessions that we've made. We, too, would like to maintain the natural landscape rather than a finished landscape buffer, so that when you go down Old Kings Road, that old Florida style is still there. So that is in the plan, too. As it relates to the buffer along the eastern portion of the property between this development and the other, the actual buffer has been increased and improved. For example, in the old PUD, there was not a requirement for fencing, and we acquiesced to putting up a fence, and we've even modified that fence since the original plan, providing landscape, a larger landscape buffer than is required by the code. So those things are addressed. As it relates to the northern boundary, the county was most concerned about accessing onto their property that goes out to their park, and that has been addressed too in the site plan. So I think most of the things in their letter have been addressed, but I will be very candid with you. Some of them have changed. For example, there was a requirement for Georgian type of architecture. That's not part of the straight zoning. So I'll answer any specific questions that you or the community may have to an issue.
Okay, I appreciate that. And then my other question was, there was a voluntary developer agreement. I don't know, was that incorporated into the comp plan amendment or into the rezoning?
Neither. That was discussed as part of the annexation, as part of that process. And we did not have an agreement yet at that point in time between the owners and the adjacent property owners, so the annexation has already been approved. As far as the comp plan, we've put in policies there, delimiting the density and intensity, lowering it down than what was approved before. And on the zoning category, I don't know that we can add, it's on a PUD, so those things will have to be addressed through a private agreement between us and the HOA.
It was my understanding, and I'll go back and read the minutes and also watch the presentations. There was, though, and I understand what you're saying about the annexation, but there was an agreement that you all graciously made some concessions to the HOA and the homeowners in Polo Club West. I'm just trying to figure out where was that, maybe city attorney can help me out, where was that incorporated?
So if you remember correctly, that was a private agreement.
Sure.
Between the developer and the HOA, and they were working on it. I have not seen it finalized and recorded.
Okay.
But it was going to be done through private deed restrictions. As far as what is being done here in the comp plan, because we're only talking about the comp plan right now, as far as the county's letter goes, the most germane item for the comp plan issue was the cap on the number of units, it being decreased from 232 units down to 210 units, and the decrease in the amount of commercial from 36,000 square feet to 30,000 square feet. That cap has been integrated in the comp plan request, but that's really the only thing that's appropriate for the comp plan request at this time.
Okay, that was my question, I appreciate that. And then finally, the map, Mr. Papa, that you showed with the yellow, yes, thank you. It looks like this does in fact include the cul-de-sac at the end of Secretariat, and I know it seems like there was a little bit of disagreement as to whether or not that was included, specifically for the buffer issue. It appears that it is in fact included. So my question is it the developer's intent to include the buffer to encompass this cul-de-sac area?
So I'll let staff give a little more detail on that because I'm not part of the conceptual master plan and plating process, but I believe that they have directed the owner to take that area and not designate it as a lot so that it's not a single family lot. It'll still be used for, I'm not sure how you termed it, but that way, and their concern was whether or not there is access through Secretariat Lane.
Well, that's what it boils down to, and maybe this is better directed at staff than, will the buffer that is going to be on Secretariat accomplish really keeping that separate from the other neighborhood if this, depending on what is determined with this cul-de-sac?
Well, as far as, if I'm reading this right, because I'm just kind of stuck in my mind, quite frankly, on the comp plan amendment. And so the residential designation is on the property of the owner that has the application. And as part of that application, what they submitted was this designation, to change the designation from which was existing as PUD, as their future land use to our existing residential. So I think some of those details that we're talking about, the next item is the zoning, but that is, the zoning, to SFR 1 and to commercial 2, right? And then the next step in the process would be that subdivision master plan, which we have received a submittal that we're reviewing. But that would be the third step of all those details. So we're, as a staff, we're analyzing, this future land use, this item, just specifically based on the comprehensive plan. So, maybe the next item, the zoning, maybe, we'll have a little sketch map up there of kind of their subdivision master plan, and maybe the next item is where we get a little bit more clarification on what you're talking about.
Yeah, and then let me be very clear, thank you for that. My decision for this isn't affected by that, but because this has been kind of a back and forth uncertainty, I just wanted to get feedback from either staff or the applicant with regards to whether or not this little hook here in the corner with this cul-de-sac is in fact included in this amendment.
It is, and the present plan for development does not call for that area to be developed. So even after the PUD, after the zoning is the plan that is in front of the city right now, it'll go to planning board next month. That area, I'm looking at it right now, remains green, undeveloped, and for the future. And if it gets developed in the future, they'll have to address that buffer issue there.
Okay, thank you for that. I have nothing further.
No comments.
I'll open this item up for the public. Are there members of the public that would like to? Yes, sir. And you're
Good evening,
speaking on
Mayor,
behalf
members of the council. Dennis Bayer on behalf of the Polo Club West Homeowners Association, my office in Flagler Beach. A couple of things. This is the future land use map amendment. I want to make one point abundantly clear. Just because this process went up to Tallahassee and came back with no comments, really has no significance. Tallahassee stopped giving meaningful review to comp plan amendments years ago, so I wouldn't put a lot of weight on that. My concern is that under the future land use map policy 1.1.33 that's mentioned in the staff report that went to the planning board, you do have to look at the issue of buffers. They're encouraged as effective means of transition between areas where there is a greater degree of disparity in terms of densities and intensities. You have a tenfold increase in density on the proposed project in the properties in Polo Club West. So I think we do need an answer on that. They call it Lot 34 that kind of sticks up there in the corner if buffers are going to be required for that. We tried to have some communication with the developer. Mr. Chimeno and I spoke 3 weeks ago or so when I first came on, but up until today there's been really not much communication coming back to some of the questions we have about the buffer. We want a 25-foot vegetative buffer. They're proposing a 10-foot vegetative buffer and then swales for stormwater, which we don't think is significant given the disparity in uses. And you know, in the staff comments, when they look at the adjacent land uses, they talk about the parcel to the north, which is a mixed-use residential low density, and they say the proposed family, trying to get this all in 3 minutes, but I may not have enough time. The proposed future land use map amendment will not have a detrimental impact on these parcels. But then when they look at the impact on my client's property, all they say is the proposed amendment will not interfere in the continued use of the properties for such purposes. Well, it doesn't say that it's not going to be compatible. It doesn't say that it's not going to have a negative impact. We think it clearly will be, unless there's more meaningful buffers. And a lot of the comments that I have are going to be, and my clients will be speaking as well, on the rezoning, is you're going away from a PUD. So there's really no safeguards that the developer is going to follow through on a lot of these promises. And I'm going to make the argument, I'm making it in a golf course conversion case in Volusia County right now, keep it PUD. You don't have to go to single-family, low-density residential. Keep it PUD so you have more safeguards on the development. They can still get the same density, but it would be more protective to the neighboring property owners and more of a sure commitment that things will be carried out into the future. So our position will be on that issue. We would like to come back with that. But we think right now that the buffer issue needs to be considered as part of this future land use map amendment. Thank you.
So, Mr. Baer, before you go, you mentioned a need for additional buffering. What is the formulation or the formula that you're using for that?
Well, the formula is that you have a tenfold increase in density for adjacent properties. It's not single-family residential next to single.
So is there an arithmetic formula you're using, or just kind of picking a number?
It's a negotiated process that we've talked about.
Negotiated process.
They said we'll have a 25-foot buffer, but their 25-foot buffer includes swales and other infrastructure. It's not a true buffer. A buffer is a visual, opaque, vegetative process that there needs to be a design. We haven't even seen how many trees they're talking about per linear foot as part of this buffer. We've asked for that
So
information.
the 25-foot is arbitrary?
It's a standard land use that's used in other.
As opposed to the 10? I'm just trying to understand the differential here.
A 25-foot buffer, for example, you have a 25-foot buffer around wetlands. That's standard statewide. Yeah. So we feel a 25-foot buffer is appropriate.
For wetlands?
For wetlands, for incompatible, higher intensity use. Part of the issue that we had is early on, we thought we were going to have a negotiated resolution. We've tried in good faith to negotiate it. We held off on retaining an expert. I had an expert lined up, but we thought we were going to reach, and the expert would have come in and testified, yes, 25-foot buffers are appropriate. In another development, the golf course development, they're having a 100-foot buffer.
So city council members, my role here is, or my intention is not to be aggressive, but, so 3 weeks. Can the applicant and yourself get together and resolve this one issue?
Well, it's not the only issue. There's other issues.
Okay.
The other issue is
That's the one you brought up.
That's the one related to the future land use map amendment. We have a number of other issues that come up with the zoning. I'm trying to keep them bifurcated.
I think if I may assist, Mr. Bear,
Excuse me.
if I may assist, do you mind?
Go ahead, please.
Okay, so I think what I'm hearing you say is that the city has the ability through the comprehensive plan amendment, in addition to capping the number of units and the commercial square footage, to also require a certain buffer through the comp plan amendment, because one of the policies of the comp plan, and I apologize, I think you said 1.3.
1.1.33, subparagraph B.
Right. I'm just going to write that down. Because that policy speaks to buffering, that it can be included, are you asking for it to be included in the comp plan amendment?
That is correct, thank you.
Okay. And what is your specific ask? 25 feet along the northern, I'm sorry, the map's not up,
It's along our
so-
shared property line, which would include
Secretary?
going around that lot 34 that kind of sticks up in the top right-hand corner from my perspective here.
Okay.
So that, again, I don't want to mix up the zoning with the comp plan amendment.
Yeah.
But in the zoning, that's shown as lot 34, which is like a 1 acre residential lot. I understand now there may be some changes as part of the master site plan. We refer to that as lot 34. So we want both the buffer and the fence that they're talking about for the zoning to go up and around lot 34 as well. Because if they're going to turn it into a dog park or some other recreational use, we think the buffer is just as important for that as it is for the other areas where it would be residential to residential.
Okay, so you're basically talking about the eastern property line.
Correct. Including that jog up on the top.
Right, that's part of the
Yep.
eastern, I guess a little bit of the northern property line.
So again, we have other comments that we would apply to the zoning part of it. But if I could just get one clarification from
Sure.
Mr.
Go
Tyner.
ahead.
Is the master site plan review, we received a notice this week, there's going to be a community hearing on the 13th, but then is it going to the planning board on December 20th?
Yeah, we're proposing to, if it's ready to go in December planning board meeting.
And then
But
after-
this action would have to take place before that.
Understood. But then after the planning board, it does not come back to the city
No,
commission?
final plat would.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, with the
No,
one
go ahead.
issue. Are there any other questions while Mr. Bear is up here?
I don't have any at the moment.
Thank you.
Thank you. I
for
appreciate
the
the time.
clarification. Appreciate that. Questions?
I don't have any questions.
Yeah.
I do have a comment, though, because I do recall, and this is to Mr. Bayer's point, I do recall specifically us talking about, and I think this was when Mr. Hoover gave the presentation at some point, buffers being considered when looking at compatibility. So when we're looking at compatibility of Polo Club West versus this new development, I agree that the extra buffer would help with the compatibility analysis with regards to adding that to the MPD requirement. So does staff have an opinion one way or the other as to whether or not an actual 25-foot buffer of vegetation will help with the compatibility of this project versus the 25 feet including swales?
You know, I mean, if you look at, I will say that our analysis is that it is compatible with the surrounding area, okay? So, you know, based on our comprehensive plan, based on our land development code, it meets that criteria of being compatible. Now, let's look, for example, the ITT lots. They're back-to-back, residential against residential. We're looking at the use. Remember that uses itself, or compatibility, doesn't mean like. Use, like, right? If that was the case, we would only have one zoning district throughout the city of Palm Coast. So, however, I will tell you that, you know, the master plan that we received and that we're analyzing right now does depict a 10-foot buffer with landscape material, along with a privacy fence.
But,
And that's beyond, that's going, we're complying with our land development code as we review the master plan, right? But that's going above and beyond the code.
well, then I guess my question goes back to what I said earlier. Why then, if the buffer is included in the analysis of whether or not this entire piece is compatible, why are we not also enforcing the buffer and the fence to include Lot 34 or that northern piece, if we're not going to use zoning terms? Why are we not forcing that to be included to assist in that compatibility or to meet that compatibility requirement?
Because we're under review right now. This is the comp plan and the zoning. So we received the master plan, and within the lot that we're talking about to the north, they're not showing it as a residential lot. They're just showing it as a future area. It's not being depicted as a platted single-family lot.
Doesn't exist yet.
No, but it does from a comp plan perspective, because from a comp plan perspective, it's still residential. So I understand what you're saying, I totally get it, but it's still yellow, it's still residential, so I'm having a tough time, because I want to say, yes, okay, the buffer makes it compatible, great, but it seems like the buffer's stopping short in that compatibility requirement, because it doesn't include this entire residential piece. That's what I'm
And
struggling
you're
with.
correct, the future land use map at this juncture does depict it as residential from a
Okay,
future
thank
land
you.
use standpoint.
Thank you.
I just want to ask you a question, right? Compatibility, though, does not mean exactly alike, is what you're saying, right?
Yes, sir.
Otherwise, it would all be the same.
Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense. Thank you.
Can I just make, since we're on
You
this
want
issue?
to, you want to add something?
Just real,
Yeah, go
very
ahead.
quickly. These things can be emotional for people, but we need to be very specific as to facts, okay? And when you're talking about this compatibility issue and the buffer element that he brought up, there is no such thing as tenfold development, okay? That is just false, okay? This project is less than what was approved by the county more than, I think, 15 or 16 years ago, before anything was developed out there, okay? So presently, what has been found compatible, at least in the county's comp plan with regarding buffers, is that there is no buffer required between this project as approved in the PUD and the existing project Polo Club West. So when we talk about tenfold development, that's just not true. There is actual reduction in density and intensity. The uses are very compatible. They're both single family. The size of the lots differ, but they're still single family adjacent or in the general region of it. So when evaluating the comp plan, we look at if we're going to have commercial or industrial next to residential, we want to have buffers, and your land development code implements those policies. In your land development code, you have a chart, I think it's in section 11 or 14 of your land development. When these uses are adjacent to each other, this is what the city requires. So knowing that this is residential versus residential, what is required is a minimum of 10 feet in your land development code. The project as planned and approved or being put forth by the developer during the next phase is existing. We are going to add not only a fence at the request, which isn't required in your land development code or anywhere else. So we're adding a fence, and we're providing 25 feet of buffer between that fence and the property line, with 10 of it being landscaped according to your code. So there is more than enough buffer between the parcels, knowing that they're compatible, knowing that there was never a buffer required historically between the two projects. So the buffer issue in the comp plan amendment context is satisfied. If we want to get into at the next stage at the conceptual master plan looking at that, that's fine too. But as relate to the buffering issue, you've heard your staff saying that they are uses, they are compatible, and if they are, then we will be required to provide the buffer as provided in the land development code. but we're, again, have already agreed with them to add more. We haven't gotten into the planning types that they want to talk about, but that's fine too. So I'm just trying to address that specific discussion made by a public speaker about tenfold development, okay? Thank you.
Mr. Berry, you have comment?
Dennis Berrigan for the Polo Club. The facts are that I was referring to the density on the proposed project and my client's density. There is a tenfold increase in density. And again, if you read your actual comp plan, it says it's not residential versus commercial. It's also densities are mentioned in the comp plan. It states buffers are encouraged as an effective means of transition between areas where there is a greater degree of disparity in terms.
Excuse me, did you say encouraged or required?
Are encouraged as proper land use management in terms of densities and intensities. So you have a change, a tenfold increase in density between the two adjacent developments. It's not an intensity like a commercial and a residential. So that's our position. I just want to make sure that the record was absolutely clear. And the other thing, Michael Chimento referenced the prior development that was approved in the county. They had larger lots next to our parcels, and their smaller lots were further away. So that's how they dealt with the issue with the prior plans, is they put larger lots next to larger lots. Here we have the same size lots throughout the development, which is why a buffer would be our proposal for a resolution. Thank you.
City council members, questions before I open up to the public?
Not at this time.
You good? All right, then I will open up the item for public comment. Are there members of the public that would like to address me in city council? Yes, sir.
Good evening. Hi, my name is Scott Shadell. I'm a property owner in Polo Club West, as well as live in Eagle Lakes at the moment. But yes, thank you for this opportunity to speak. I feel very fortunate to live in a country where officials are chosen by the people and operate in such a transparent manner with the benefit of the public as primary goal as we are doing here. Also apologize that my statement may not be the most polished. I'm sure as many of you can relate, outside of our daily work, family, immediate, the previous and upcoming holidays, finding the time to delve into something like this can be a challenge, to find the time and to research it and everything. And also apologize that public speaking is not my forte. I only do this when I must, and I've also never even spoke out at a meeting like this, but this time I feel like I have to. As mentioned, for the general public to be challenged to be able to come into a meeting such as this and be able to voice an opinion. What is being proposed? How is it different? What process is followed? Thankfully, the requirement to notify the public is covered in the Unified Development Code of Palm Coast. Part 2, line 2.05.03D states that there has to be notice, signs posted 14 days. Well, it can be argued that 14 days isn't long enough, but does there have to be a certain amount of time the signs have to be in place? Because I've driven by the property since Thanksgiving. I never even knew there was a sign supposed to be there. I found it on December 3rd down in the ditch. So, because basically it's on a little stick the size of my finger with 3 staples in it, and half the staples are not even embedded. So the sign just flies off. So I don't know what the requirement for the time is, but it's not been up there. Time's getting slow, but one of the things is I keep saying that this is a PUD. This is an existing PUD. Well, for some history on it, yes, in 2006, the zoning was changed to low-density residential and commercial, 84 acres, 232 units. In 2007, per Lighthouse Development, yes, Flagler County Ordinance 2007-05, the PUD was approved, 231 units. In 2009, some of the units that comprised that PUD were sold to Flagler County and are still owned by Flagler County. That was actually that piece that goes around the back and also some of the other stuff up there. Well, basically, per Flagler County ordinances, Appendix C, Article 3, 3.0402H, expiration of PUDs. The development actions required by the ordinance of creating a PUD shall be taken within 1 year of date of enactment or due to the project's size and complexity, other time limits set by Flagler County Commission. If such time limits expire, the approval of the PUD shall become invalid and the area shall revert back to the previous land use classification.
Thank you, okay. That,
So it's not a PUD.
Thank you for-
Notification signs are saying it's a PUD, and
thank you
it's
for your
not,
comment.
and you
Thank
guys allow it.
Thank you for your comment. We'll get back to it in a second. Are there any other members of the public that would like to comment on this item at this time? Go ahead, you're going to jump in for, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, my apologies.
That's all right, go ahead. You're there, go ahead.
Quick question. Peter Johnson, Palm Coast. Just on behalf of all Palm Coast residents.
It's for public comment, so you have a comment?
Yeah, the mixed use, and the developers can answer this, I'm not expecting it now. The mixed use, is there any sort of proposal as to what that is going to be specifically? Is it going to be another storage unit potentially? It's just all my question. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council. Once again, thank you for your time tonight. My name is John Duncan. I'm a property owner in the Polo Club West. I've spoken with you before. Our property is immediately adjacent to this development, as you know. I mean, I really wish we had better news to report about the negotiations here, but there really isn't tonight. After months of direction by yourselves to the developer and your own staff, no substantive good faith progress has really been made on the necessary issues that we feel is required to bring these two vastly incompatible developments together. As previously stated before, while we continue to respect the rights of a property owner to develop their land legally and responsibly, the common sense concept also has to be offered here, particularly when you're adjoining two dissimilar properties such as this. For many months, we've attended your meetings, we've attended the town hall meetings, we've attempted to work out important issues with the developer, but to no avail. The same issues still remain open today. The wall and the natural vegetative buffer, by the way, was in the PUD, 25 feet in the PUD. That buffer, we've been discussing for months. We've asked for a concept plan on it. We haven't gotten it. You haven't gotten it. You gave direction on it. Nobody has seen it yet. The encompassment of Lot 34 has to be done. Lot 34 now belongs to you, the City of Palm Coast. You annexed it. That's part of the City of Palm Coast. The only access to that lot is going to have to be from this development or someplace in the county. Secretariat is a private road. You know, there's not going to be any access on Lot 34 from Secretariat. There's also shown on the estate plan, or on the concept site plan, a quote-unquote proposed 20-foot gravel emergency access road that connects to Secretariat, which is our private road. This has to be removed. There's no plat easement from the county or otherwise that even allows this. I even question the legality of this. How can you put a private access, emergency access road onto a private road? I just don't even get that. Maybe your staff can explain that to us. That's the equivalent of the city or a county coming to your house and saying we need to put a 20-foot gravel access road through your front yard to access your neighbor's property. It's like, no, it's your property, no easement. The commercial property needs to have similar restrictions that the PUD had. C2 is just absolutely too broad. We asked that there be no gas stations or convenience stores allowed there. We've made every attempt over the past months to work with the developer on these important issues, including enlisting the services of Attorney Dennis Beyer. To date, there's been little contact, unreturned calls, no substantive progress. As I mentioned, even after your direction and numerous promises, we've still not seen the vegetative plan. Based on this, at this point, we respectfully request that you either deny or postpone this until we get these issues resolved. Thank you. We appreciate your time on this.
Appreciate your comment. Staff, do you want to weigh in on any of those points? There was a question about legalities, and I'm confused about reaching back into the PUD and coming forward. What?
Yeah, so I don't know that, number one, that's not germane to the comp plan amendment before you. Number two, that's a land development code requirement to provide a secondary access under if there's certain number of units. And obviously the secondary access has to be real access and legal access. So that wouldn't be permitted if there's no legal access to that road. I don't know if there is or not. I have been not asked to review it, but it's not germane to the comprehensive plan amendment you have in front of you.
You have a comment?
Good evening, Council. Bob Addick, 2 Lexington Court, Polo Club West. You know, we've sat out here, I think September 1st was about our first meeting. Our first community meeting with the developer was on September 11th. When we started this process, we came to the annexation meetings. We all kind of knew where this process was going. The developer was looking to eliminate the requirements of the PUD that was set in place by the county, and he was going to do that through annexation to the city of Palm Coast and through the rezoning of the property. Polo Club West as a community has not really fought that process at all. All we have looked for are the protections that were granted to our shared property line as part of that original PUD. That PUD was in place when people invested millions of dollars into Polo Club West. These are existing residents of Flagler County. So, you know, it's a point that's been made, but you sat here as a council and you told the developer to start working with us and get that buffer figured out. And they told us they were going to do that on September 11th also. And it's just not a hard thing to work out. It's very simple. You just provide a cross-section of the buffer that's going to be between our 2 property lines. And we wouldn't be here tonight, and we might be up here supporting the development. We have not asked that this developer not develop this property. We've had very, very simple requests this whole process, and you guys have encouraged them to work with us and to grant us those requests in a manner that works for both parties, and it's just not happening. It is concerning because every time we come to one of these meetings, these issues are brought up, direction is provided, and nothing happens, but approval is still granted, and the process continues to move forward. These are people that have invested their life savings into million-dollar houses that are going to share a property line with 70 new residents. These are not residents that they would have seen through their front door as part of the original PUD. We're looking for that type of protection as part of this new development. The plans that have been presented do not provide that protection. It is not a big ask. It's very simple. It's really tough to listen to the residents because we are being discounted so much. And you guys are our representatives. You're the people that are supposed to be fighting this fight for us. And we hope you do. Thank you.
Are there any other members of the public? Yes, ma'am. Or yes, sir, go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Paul Scheidel. I don't live in the county. That's my son, Scott, over there who's speaking. But I, too, have the frustration of how you advertise or post the notifications for land use, PUDs. You put signs up, or you supply signs to tell the public that there is going to be a rezoning, PUD, whatever it may be. You give that, to, my understanding, you give that to the developer. He goes out and he puts it, a couple staples, and it falls down. I've been up here visiting different times, and I see there's nobody maintaining that sign. So really, in theory, you're not given any, or in actuality, you're not given notice to the public. You have signs all over this place. I put pictures just around the building. You have signs for council. I understand, don't park there. You'll get towed away. That's the impact of a sign. But you don't have, even my understanding is that you might not even have any kind of guidance or procedure for posting signs that talk about growth. And growth is the most important thing for your future. The city's the future of the residents is this type of sign to give notice where you're going and what you're developing. And so I'm not arguing about the details. I'm just saying you need to get a procedure for a permanent sign. And I live in a county that does have that procedure. So if I can, give it to whoever, they put them up on 2x4s. Who's that?
You give it to the clerk.
Right here, over there, okay. Is that they put up 2x4s.
Okay.
The size is 4x3. The lettering is up 9 inches. So whenever you have, and whenever you have, and I'll give you your signs. When you have your signs here, and they're falling on the ground, and you have staples that you have off your desk, and the signs are like this, and you have where you can't even read them, you're not doing anything for the citizens of the city or the county. I just can't believe, I looked at it. You've been incorporated since 1999. You know, this project here is almost as old as the city. But you need to have some procedures. So I'd be glad to give these to you.
I appreciate that.
But we
Thank you,
need to
sir.
do something for the future.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Celia Puglisi in Palmco since 1991. We just have right here in front of all of us another tragedy. These people is suffering, like we are suffering for this potential tower in the wrong place. We don't have nothing against towers, but it's in the wrong place, right? Affecting the value, probably the health, and our quality of life. These people have the tragedy. They bring it to us, to you. As a resident and sympathetic, because whether we are affluent or we are middle class or we are poor in Palmcoast, we all go through the same things. What our council approves based on what is presented by the staff. And so I don't understand how come planning sometimes presents to council for approval, planning, some of the things that are presented to you. There is no consideration for the existing residents. We are discounted, exactly like the gentleman described now. No matter who we are discounted in between the special interest, which is home builders associations, their members, their legal teams, and staff, and the city council and mayor that approve what is presented. You need to have compassion and think about us. Our charter says that whatever is to be built has to be first in consideration with the existing residents' well-being. Somebody needs to read the charter because it's not being read. And because of that, and because I am one of them, and we also had to use attorneys, and we will use it again if it's needed, it's not a threat, it's our sad reality. Fighting for our quality of life, the value of our homes, our health, the safety that we don't have anymore. The other day I came out noontime, in the Palmcoast Parkway. I live 1.5 blocks from it. I was stuck there for 15 minutes in traffic. And you know, our city, through the community development, went and brought a Wawa to be installed in the middle of the Palmcoast Parkway in that mess on Florida Park Drive. So these are the inefficacies that we have here in the city. And I'm sorry, I have to bring them to you. And I get really, stressed talking about this because this affects us very badly. So I really hope you do not vote yes today. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Are there any, yes, ma'am.
Hi, Christine Kraus, 60 Steeplechase Trail, Flagler Polo Club West. First thing I want to mention is there was an amendment done to the PUD for a fence and a buffer, just so you know. I do have that paperwork. I don't have it with me. I will forward that to you tomorrow. The other thing is the commercial. From day one, we sent you guys an ask list. On that ask list was that the commercial restrictions and allowances stayed the same, no matter what you put in there. We have asked that from day one. Our things have not changed. And like Bob said, we have not fought this at all, and nor will we, but we want what we're asking for. The other thing is their buffer is coming in to us. A buffer should start on their property line. It should not come on our property line. Our property should not be part of that buffer. So where they put that fence and where it goes towards them should be that 25-foot buffer, in my opinion. They're putting the buffer into the swale. And on one, if I'm not mistaken, the fence is in the swale. Am I not correct? Didn't you write that in the email, that one's on one side, one's on the other? Yes, and that's all I have.
Thank you. Hold on one second. hold a second. Go ahead, sir.
Hi, my name is Paul Furr. I'm at 23 Steeplechase. I sent you an email this afternoon, and it had the letter that you mentioned attached to it. I don't know if everyone saw it. I'm not real knowledgeable on zoning and all the stuff that goes on in planning neighborhoods, but I keep hearing the word compatibility. This neighborhood, from a layperson's perspective, is not compatible. It has 7 homes per acre, 5 feet between each one. They're going to take the 60 acres and completely flatten it. All the oak trees, everything will be gone. That doesn't seem compatible to the neighborhood behind it that has 1 home per 5 acres. It just doesn't seem the same. And when I read this, they keep saying that they applied to Flagler County and it was approved. It's approved, it's approved. It wasn't approved. They had a bunch of questions. So they did an end around and came to the city. And now if you read this thing, and I'll submit it, I don't know if you had a chance to see it, it has a lot of objections, including the 25-foot buffer, which has been discussed an awful lot, and some other things that I jotted down. The Old Kings Road is designated as scenic highway. It's going to get flattened. If you index the trees, you've got to replace it with 2 times what was already there. There was supposed to be nature trails. There was supposed to be green space, 30% green space. There's none of that. So unfortunately, I hope you consider that. And if it's okay, good.
Thank you for your, give it to the clerk, please. Yes, sir.
Yes, good evening, George Mayo. I have no dog in this fight, but I was at the meeting when they discussed this at the county commissioner's office, and the same questions here. I see the bone of contention. You could work out the buffer, et cetera. I'm sure that somebody could work that out. But it's that lot 34, that little jog in the northeast corner. The county was very vague. What are you going to do about it? The builder says, well, it's residential, but we don't have plans to build on it. Which doesn't mean somewhere down the road in a couple of months, somebody who buys that property is going to say, I'm building a house here, but I have to get out somehow, which is going to require going out into the other cul-de-sac there or something. I think that is going to be a bone of contention that is going to have to be worked out, or it's going to be a problem. The city has been very vague. Well, yeah, it's there. Yes, it's residential. But it seems to me it's landlocked. I don't see why the developer couldn't just take that jog there, that lot 34, and make it part of the other lot that abuts it, whatever lot they call it, and just make it one big lot and not have it, and that would solve the problem. But I could see that's the one bone of contention. It was at the county, and it is here.
Thank you for your comment. Any others? One more.
Hello, everyone. Debbie Furr, 23 Steeplechase Trail. I sent you all an email this afternoon. So first, I want to thank you all. I'm sitting here listening to everyone. So thank you for paying attention and being engaged. The 3 points that I wanted to make was around the green space, around the impact to the environment, and also about preserving the character. So we've heard a lot about the green space. I'm not going to keep going on that. The impact to the environment, I know in the county they decided that yes, there's not going to be any impact to the environment, and that's because they were going to work with the Florida Wildlife Department to physically move all the gopher turtles. Attached to the email I sent you today was a picture of a gopher turtle as I was driving out of the neighborhood right there. What I didn't attach, I have it on my phone, I took a picture. There's also an osprey nest right on Old Kings Road. You can see it right from the street. So while osprey is no longer endangered, they still have it listed as an imperiled species. So not only the gopher turtles, we've got an osprey, we've got deer and everything there. And then finally, with regards to preserving the character of the residential communities, So we found out that Old Kings Highway was a heritage, view, and the trees that are along that way, it's beautiful. And if you haven't seen that, you should go take a little drive down there. If someone's going to clear cut that, whether they put plants or buffers, we would like the natural landscape. So I think to try and preserve the community that's right behind us, which is Polo Club West, and if you go up Kings Highway a little bit longer, there's neighborhoods on either side. With the number of houses per acre, 7, and I think it said that it was 1,200 square feet. I don't think that that's comparable to the one house for 5 acres. In the original PUD that we've discussed, they had more houses. That's one thing they kept saying, is we're reducing the number of houses, but those houses were strategically placed. There was supposed to be green space, there was supposed to be parks, there was supposed to be a bike trail, and we haven't seen it, but I think none of that is on there. So I would just ask for you to go back and look at the old PUD. We'd love to see what they're planning this way so we could take a look, and just thanks for your time.
Thank you for your comment.
You're
Good.
You guys have all heard me many times. I'm Laura Biddle. I'm from Polo West, 67 Steeplechase. I would just like to ask that you go back to the previous meetings and look at where, Mayor Alphen, you had told the developers and the staff to make sure that they worked with us for everything that we were asking, because it wasn't that much. It was pretty simple things to ask for. And I just want to get your assurances that you still support that you still want us all to work together and make it happen so that we're both getting what we want. They can get the houses they want, the development they want, and we can get the security and the safety that we want and the privacy that we all purchased this property for. That's it.
Thank you for your comment. Mr. Shimano?
Without belaboring the point as to the various reasons we haven't gotten to an agreement, I'm very confident that we can address many of the issues, not all of the issues, but many of the issues, particularly as it relates to compatibility and buffer. We presently are scheduled to have the conceptual plan in front of the planning board on Wednesday, December 20th, okay? At that point in time, there'll be a staff report. There will be a plan to be presented, so it will be definite. What I would ask that, and Mr. Bear and I have worked together for 20-something years, and I do believe that the residents are proceeding in good faith. If you will allow us to table both of these time certain to the 19th, I'm sure that we can bring back to you all, not an agreement between us and you, but a report between us. However, I do want to say this, that we may not be able to come to an agreement on every specific item, but the issues addressing compatibility, I'm very confident that we can. As it relates to the Lot 34, it is not being proposed for the development, and it will remain natural, and if it was ever developed, it would have to come with the site plan anyway. So again, what I'm asking you all to do is table these items time certain to the 19th, that we can come back with hopefully an agreement, at least in concept, between us and Mr. Bear. Yes, sir.
Okay. Staff, you heard that.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Tyner, do you think it's reasonable that the groups can come to some agreement that, by what is the date? December what?
19th.
19th?
Tuesday.
Based on
Correct.
your working with the two groups?
Yeah, yes, sir. I think, it sounds like both the applicant and the representative are agreeing to talk, so.
All right, Mr. Bear, just bear with me for a second. 1 second.
I want to hear from Mr. Bear before we
Yeah,
before
just
you
a second.
ask.
Hold on 1 second. I just want to express the thought that I have.
Okay.
I just saw the letter today from the county. I've not had a chance to fully digest it, so I'm uncomfortable that I don't understand all of the collaborative effort the county is asking for, nor has the planning board seen this letter as far as I know. So I don't have the planning board to rely on either. So I'm just letting you know how I feel about where we're at now. And Mr. Bear, you want to go first, or you want to, Councilperson Pontieri? Go ahead.
I was actually going to make a suggestion a little bit similar to what Mr. Chimeno mentioned. My concern is the December 19th, is that a daytime meeting? I've got a conflict. I've got an all-day mediation. I'm scheduled to be a mediator on with another. What I was going to suggest, particularly with the master site plan, you know, if we have the commission meeting on the 19th and master site plan on the 20th, not much time to flesh out any issues between zoning approval. And I know time is money, and they'd like to, I would request it be pushed back to January if at all possible. It's just hard to get stuff done before the holidays, and I cannot make the 19th work on my schedule. Like I said,
So my concern would not be so much with you fellows, but it would be with staff. Does that work for your schedule? Actually, wait, I'm sorry, city manager. I would ask staff, go ahead.
So that would be, the first meeting in January is January 2nd, I believe, and that's a night meeting, because it's the first meeting
that would be fine by my
of the
schedule.
month.
How did you
What-
feel about that, Mr. Chimento? Are you okay with
Wait,
it?
wait, city manager, with regard to staff, because you've got to set the agenda.
January 2nd, I'm looking at the future worksheet for items. That would work for our staff.
Now, let me, and I'm sorry, Councilwoman Pontieri, you want to make some comments, so I don't want to continue this conversation without you getting your comments in.
No, I wanted to make sure that we were not being asked to make a decision on continuing this without hearing from Mr. Bayer on behalf of the homeowner. So, Mr. Bayer, if you are okay with that, then, you know.
I'm fine. You know, as Mr. Chimeno and I have been across the table from one another on a number of cases. And again, we're not objecting to the density. So, I mean, it's not like we're saying no development. It's issues that hopefully we can come together and resolve, at least come up with a compromise that's better than the position that we have right now. So I have no objection to that whatsoever.
I mean, I get the feeling from City Council, we would really like you all to get this put together so that everybody's a win. And you know, not only that, it's complicated for us because you've got residents of the county and you've got residents of the city. So this is an unusual, I would love for everybody to walk away from this, you know, well, I'd love for everybody to walk away from this a little bit unhappy, which means that it's a good win, that nobody got everything, but everybody got something.
Understood.
And that was the point I want to make, is that I just hope the residents and everyone understands, you don't get everything you want. Just because we're giving direction to work together doesn't mean we're giving direction to give
but we've got
one
good
side
faith.
or the other side everything they're
But
asking
we've got a
for.
good faith effort, I think, from everybody that's involved, and staff is reinforcing that for me as well. Mr. Tyner.
I just want to say one thing. You know, if we're going to move this, continue this to the second meeting, then we're not going to be able to hit the November, because I think any changes that are done with the applicant and you, we would need to move the subdivision master plan to the January planning board meeting, just to give us time. We'll have to do that.
That's
So I
real-
just wanted the
that-
public know, because we've been stating the November planning board, so we
And that's
or the
realistic.
December planning board, so we'll have to
So
go
that's
through
real.
January.
Do we need a motion to table
Hold on,
this?
so City Manager, that's realistic for your staff?
What I'm hearing it is from our planning staff.
Okay.
Do we need a motion?
Yeah, so,
Hold on, wait.
so,
Just let it go.
real quick. One thing, Ray or Jose, can you just, there's a couple, before we get out of this meeting and continue it, there was a couple mentions on the record that the density was 7 units per acre. My calculation is that it's 3.3 units an acre. Could you verify that for me, or around 3.3?
Mr. Hoover said 3.3.
Okay, I
Yes.
just wanted to make that correction for this record, for the public comments that were made, that it's 3.3 dwelling units an acre, not 7 units an acre. As for the continuance, we'll have to finish this item by a motion to continue to a date certain of January 2nd, 2024. Then we will need to open the rezoning item. I will read it into the record.
Just a thing.
I think we should ask for any public comment, just in case somebody can't show up on January 2nd, and if we don't get any, I would ask if people can show up on January 2nd, it would be good to make your comments then, because then you have a better idea of what has transpired in the period of time. And then there'll be a motion for the rezoning to a date certain of January 2nd, 2024.
All right, so we've completed public comment on this item. I believe we've finished staff comment. I am going to ask for a motion.
I will make the motion to continue this to date certain. What's the date?
January 2nd, 2024.
January 2nd, 2024.
I would ask for a second. I have a second from Councilwoman Hyder. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Are there any opposed?
The motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Now we're going to read the next item into the record, Counselor.
Yes.
It's what number is it?
Number 4
number
on
4.
the agenda.
Yep.
This is item number 4 on the agenda, an ordinance concerning a rezoning application number 5506, Old Kings Village, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Palm Coast, Florida, amending the official zoning map as established in Section 2.06 of the City of Palm Coast Unified Land Development Code for 62.31 acres of certain real property described as tax parcel identification numbers 381231 0000 03040 0060 381231 0000 03040 0070 and 381231 0000 03040 0080, generally located in the east side of the Old Kings Road, about 2.5 miles south of State Road 100, Moody Boulevard, and being more particularly described in attached Exhibit A. From planned unit development PUD to the single-family residential SFR1 and general commercial COM2 zoning districts, providing for severability, conflicts, and an effective date. Council members, this is a quasi-judicial matter. If you've had any ex parte communications that haven't previously been disclosed, because I know you disclosed them before, please disclose them now for the record.
I think everyone has received emails as early as today, so yes.
Just emails.
Okay.
But is that going
Emails.
to affect your decision?
Absolutely
Affect
not.
your decision? No.
Okay.
So we have been, but it will not affect our decision.
Thank you.
I would go out to the public. I am going to ask the representative of the HOA, you don't have to speak, but in addition to our public notifications, if you would please invite your members to attend the meetings so that we can get to a finish line on this item, that would be much appreciated. In addition to our required public notices. Are there any other members of the public that would like to comment on this part of the issue at this time?
State my name again, Christine Kraus, 60 Steeplechase. I want to put this on record.
Can you pull your microphone?
That was from Bonnie Spillers, who you all know. She came here many times and talked. She has 2 deaf children that live at the lot right next to that lot 34 we're discussing. That is one thing that she and everybody else in this association wants, is that whole thing fenced in. That is not going to be negotiable. That has to happen. She's got kids. That butts right up to her property. That would literally be people right beside her house. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you for your comment. Anyone else? So I'll go ahead and close public comment. Any final comment from city council members? Go ahead.
I do, but I don't want to skip Vice Mayor.
No, go ahead.
Okay. So I know that we're likely going to motion to continue this, but I just do want to point out, because I specifically asked during the last meeting, during the first reading on this rezoning, regarding the commercial, because it was previously commercial low intensity, and now we're moving to COM2. My specific question was, can convenience stores with fuel depots be included in COM1 and COM2? And the response to me was yes. That's not the full truth, though. The full truth is, if the parcel is located within a certain distance to residential, which in this case it will be, there has to be a special exception. So I go to Chapter 3 of the Land Development Code, and in the chart, which is Table 3.5, there's a footnote specifically with regards to COM1 versus COM2, convenience stores that include gas, and it says in the footnote that there has to be an exception granted if it's COM1 for a convenience store with a gas station. it is, I think, something that needs to be considered by council when looking at the rezoning of this, because previously it was commercial low intensity to go to COM1 versus COM2. So I'm only asking of my colleagues, because I know we're likely going to continue this, really consider that before this comes back before this council as to whether or not in the rezoning we should be going to residential in COM1 versus residential in COM2, because that is more compatible, that is what was previously there, and it does in fact force there to be an exception to allow a convenience store with a fuel depot rather than it being automatic. So that's my only comment.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Any other comment? All right, with that, then I would ask for a motion.
I'll make the motion to continue this to date certain, February 2nd, correct?
January 2nd,
January 2nd.
2024.
2024.
And I'll ask for a second.
I'll second.
Councilwoman Pontieri seconds. Is there any additional comment from City Council? All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Are there any opposed?
The motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Gentlemen, thank you.
The next item on the agenda is item number G5, an ordinance. This is a second read, an ordinance amendment to the solicitation ordinance, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Palm Coast, Florida, amending Chapter 35, nuisances, offenses, and miscellaneous provisions, Article 3, solicitation, Division 2, peddlers and hawkers, Section 35-163, license required, application, issuance terms, Section 35-169, license suspension, and Section 35-170, license revocation, and Section 35-171, penalties of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Palm Coast, to provide for a revised application and review process to obtain and hold a solicitation license, providing for severability, codification conflicts, and an effective date. City Council members, this is the second reading of the door-to-door solicitation item. You have all seen this. This is the third time that you're seeing it. The couple changes that were made from the workshop are still included in it. It's the same as the last time that you saw it. I don't know if staff, Ray, do you have anything else to add?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
Let's just hold for a second.
Sure. You can probably go out for public comment if you wanted to. And
Okay.
then,
All right. Are there any members of the public that would like to comment on this item, which is the door-to-door solicitation ordinance at this time? Seeing no one come forward, I will close public comment, and we'll just hold just for a moment.
A little karaoke, perhaps?
Don't tempt me. I'm more of a rapper than an actual singer, FYI.
We
Yeah.
can now start the party because Councilwoman Ponzieri has arrived. So I've gone out for public comment. We had no public comment. We've been through this ordinance some time. Any final comments? I think we're good, right? Everybody?
I'm happy to make the motion to amend this.
I'll accept. Okay, so please, you made the motion to accept the ordinance as presented this evening. Is there a, yes?
Yeah, no, I'm good.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
And I have a second from Councilwoman Pontieri. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Are there any opposed?
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Counselor, if you would move to the next item.
Of course. The next item on the agenda is agenda item H6, and this is concerning amendment of the boundaries of the Landings Community Development District, CDD, application number 5560. An ordinance of the City of Palm Coast, Florida, expanding the boundaries of the Landings Community Development District pursuant to Chapter 190 Florida statutes for a combined total of 560.86 acres, providing for functions and powers and a board of supervisors, providing for administrative corrections, severability conflicts, and an effective date.
Thank you, City Council. Mr. Fong Nguyen, this is an amendment to an existing, adding some lands as part of Community Development District, and Mr. Fong Nguyen will have the staff presentation.
Good evening, Mayor and Council members. For the record, Fong Nguyen, Senior Planner. This is the request to amend the Landings Community Development District boundaries. The amended landings CDD has a combined of 560 acres of land and is located north of Seminole Woods Boulevard, east of US 1 and south of Citation Boulevard, as depicted here on the map. The existing landing CDD is on the top, and then the request is to amend and incorporate the expansion boundary, which is depicted in the bottom of the map there. In October of 2023, the landing CDD submitted a petition to amend the boundaries of the landing CDD incorporating Cascades. A CDD serves as a funding mechanism for providing the infrastructure for the 801 home community. The 801 units, as broken down, comes from the existing CDD landing of 385, and then the Cascade is of 416. The CDD is a special purpose unit of government that is utilized to acquire, finance, operate, and maintain the infrastructure in a large planned community. As stated, this is not a creation of a district. The CDD already exists. However, the review criteria are the same as the creation of a district. The city is not a party to the financing and does not incur any obligation for the infrastructure debt. Pursuant to section 190.0461, a landowner or the board, the word board here is the Board of Supervisors who manages the existing CDD, may petition to contract or expand the boundaries of a community development district in the following manner. The petition shall contain the same information required by section 190.0051, A1 and 8. In addition, if the petitioner seeks to expand the district, which is in this case, the petition shall describe the proposed timetable for construction of any district services to the area, the estimated cost of constructing the proposed services, and the designation of the future general distribution, location, and extent of public and private uses of land proposed for the area by the future land use plan element of the adopted local government local comprehensive plan. So once the infrastructure is completed, it is managed by a 5-member board of supervisors. The 5-member board of supervisors already exists for the landings CDD, which basically will also manage the expansion area. Florida law requires potential purchasers of real estate within the CDD to be notified upfront in writing of the infrastructure costs and annual payments. And payments are made to the Flagler County Tax Collector's Office as an assessment. And under statute chapter 190, the establishment of a CDD of less than 2,500 acres may be approved by the city council, and chapter 190 provides 6 factors which the city council shall consider in their review for the establishment of the CDD. These 6 factors are the same for an expansion or a contraction of an existing CDD. So here are the 6 factors. Factor number 1, whether all the statements contained within the petition which you provided have been found to be true and correct. Staff finds the statements contained in the petition for the CDD expansion correct and true. Factor 2, whether the establishment of the district is inconsistent with any applicable element or portion of the state comprehensive plan or of the effective local government comprehensive plan. Findings is that staff finds the proposed petition for CDD expansion consistent with the state and the city of Palm Coast comprehensive plans. Factor number 3, whether the area of land within the proposed district is of sufficient size, is sufficiently compact, and is sufficiently contiguous to the developable as one functional interrelated community. The landing CDD expansion, which includes the Cascades, is a planned residential community. Staff finds this development of sufficient size, scale, and sufficiently compact to serve as a functional, interrelated community. Factor 4, whether the district is the best alternative available for delivering community development services and facilities to the area that will be served by the district. Staff finds the CDD is an alternative available to provide facilities and services to this interrelated community. Further, staff finds the CDD will prevent the general body of taxpayers from bearing the burden for installation of infrastructure and maintenance of certain facilities and services within the CDD, resulting in an efficient use of infrastructure and resources. Factor number 5, whether the community development services and facilities of the district will be incompatible with the capacity and uses of existing local and regional community development services and facilities. Staff does not find incompatibilities with the capacity and uses of existing local and regional facilities and services. The petition contends the CDD will provide a perpetual entity capable of making reasonable provisions for the provision, operation, and maintenance of facilities and services. Lastly, factor 6, whether the area that will be served by the district is amenable to separate special district government. The CDD will provide facilities and services to the landings phase 5 and 6 and the Cascades plan development and will be amenable to separate special district within the city of Palm Coast. Overall, staff finds that the landing CDD boundary expansion met all 6 factors. And city and applicant ran as per statutory requirement as provided here. Staff has not received any communication from the public on this petition to date. And planning staff recommends that City Council determine the Landings Community Development District boundary expansion petition is in compliance with Florida Statutes Chapter 190 and the city's comprehensive plan, and approve the ordinance to amend the boundaries of the Landings Community Development District application number 5560. And the applicant is present and available for questions.
Staff is pretty standard CDD language. Other questions for the applicant?
I just have a
Yeah,
couple
go ahead.
clarification questions. I'm looking at the exhibits to the petition, and I want to make sure that we're being consistent, because the presentation said that with Grand Landings and Cascades, we're looking at 801 dwelling units. But I see a reference to 1,200 and I think 56 dwelling units in a couple places. If we look at page 201 of the packet, on the map here, it says that Cascades overall has 851 lots, and then it totals up the Cascades at Grand Landings at 415, I think. So, and there's a couple other references to 1,256. So I just want to make sure we're being consistent. Can you explain why there would be that reference versus the 801?
Yes. The application petition for expansion included the anticipated number of units for the Cascades at 850. However, the Flume Amendment application went to the council, and council approved at a reduction of 416, which were the units that was carried over from the county. So if you take the 416 plus 385 of the existing entitlement for Cascade, Grand Landings Phase 5 and 6, it equals to 801 instead of over 1,200 units.
Okay, so that's my concern, because the ordinance as it reads right now says that the petition correctly states that everything, essentially it states everything the petition is correct. But right now the petition still references that 1,256 number. So if there's some type of amendment that needs to be made to the petition, and we can motion that here, I'm not asking to delay it for you at all, but just to make sure that we are very clear on the record that we are not approving a CDD for 1,256 homes, we're approving a CDD that includes 801 homes.
Yeah, staff coordinated that with the, Mr. Michael Chimento relating to that. And the request is that we continue to move forward with that because it's looking at the potential number of units, whether they will be able to reach that or not, that's a different issue. So if you would like to ask the applicant to correct that as part of your motion, I believe that's your prerogative, yeah.
Respectfully, I think it would have to be corrected, because we've only approved a total of 801, or the 416. It's not possible to now go back and change that approval via an approval of the CDD. So it would naturally have to be corrected on the record for us to accept it today.
I think the applicant will like to say some words.
Sure,
regarding
please.
So you are correct that the comprehensive plan and the zoning limits development on all the property within the district. What you're actually looking at was part of an engineer's cost estimate when we did the bond validations. The bond validations, I think, are up to $35 million. That won't be met. So those are just conceptual plans as part of an engineer's report that was done back in, I think, in June. But there's no way to develop the number of units that were in that engineer's report because the zoning is a limitation. This CDD does not grant any development rights at all to the developer. That's all controlled by the zoning and the comprehensive plan amendment limitations. So, you know, as you see in the ordinance that you have, it doesn't reference any development rights or anything. It's just merely a way for a CDD like Grand Haven, like Hammock Dunes, where we can pull multiple developers together. They'll have their own HOAs, and instead of managing the infrastructure separately, it's all under one umbrella. It enables us to provide in the present plan that is going forward a mega amenity right in the middle so that we don't have multiple amenities. And it also enables the CDD to, because it's a special purpose government, develop infrastructure for the city of Palm Coast. Presently, what's planned is that CDD will construct about $2 million of off-site infrastructure that the city of Palm Coast needs in addition to what the developer's putting in.
Yeah, no, and I can appreciate that. I just want, because in full transparency, I know there's a request for a rehearing on this,
Sure.
on the Cascades. So I don't want to further muddy any waters here of exactly what we're doing. So just for record purposes, it needs to be very clear, I think, that because the ordinance specifically says everything in the petition was stated correctly, but the petition references 1,256 dwelling units, we need to be very clear for record purposes that that part of the petition, for whatever reason,
Sure.
I'm not saying it was done intentionally, that part of the petition still needs to be, I guess, on the record that it's only the 801. So that's just my only, I want to make that very clear as we
So
approach this.
do you want to include that in your motion when we get there?
Can I ask a couple quick questions?
Certainly.
About this? Do you have to have the number of units in the petition?
No. No,
Is
and
it-
in fact, the petition doesn't really.
Is it contingent, I'm asking you this, Mr. Chimento, because I don't know if anyone, if your bonding, your lenders require the expansion petition to have the number of units?
No.
Because I understand what Councilmember Pontieri is saying. One of the first criteria is all the statements in the petition have been found to be true and correct. And that's a statutory requirement. Also, as a side note, I also represent CDDs, and the number of units where it's referenced multiple different places can have an effect on methodologies down the road for assessment purposes.
Of course.
So I think there's an added kind of layer of confusion that it could add, not just that all the statements are not necessarily true and correct in the petition, because the city can't say whether that's the number of units that you're entitled to. But I don't know that we have to state that there's, that the direct number of units, other than saying, the number of units is set by the existing entitlements on the property
By
or
the Land
something like
Development
that.
Code or the comprehensive plan. We can clean that up between now and the next meeting.
Yeah, because if you could,
Understood.
and just to be very clear, and I thank you to the city attorney for explaining that, because I think in order for our approval of the CDD to be valid for you, we have to certify that everything in the petition is correct. And currently Exhibit 9, which is your capital plan, has page 1, which states, I misspoke, it's not 1,256 units, it's 1,246 units. So by law, I think we would be misplaced to say that everything in the petition is in fact correct when it's not. So I just want to make sure that there's no discrepancy there for the future of your CDD, that should read 801 units and not 1,246.
Well, I understand your point, but the capital improvement plan doesn't dictate. It just puts on a theoretical maximum in which you go back and you do your on table 3, your infrastructure summary costs. So
Right, but it's
this
still an
isn't-
exhibit to the petition. That's the issue.
I understand, but all it does is say that there's be a maximum of. It doesn't say that there will be developed these amount of units or in anything. So I'll clean that up though between now and then.
Please do. Thank
Between
you.
now and the 19th, we'll be back. Okay.
Any other questions for the applicant at this time?
I have none.
I will open up this item to the public. Are there any members of the public that would like to comment on this item at this time? Seeing no one come forward, I will come back to the dais. Any final comment? Then, do you want to make a motion with your statement, Councilwoman?
I would, yes. I'll
Go
make a
ahead.
motion to approve the ordinance, knowing that the applicant is going to correct Exhibit 9 to the petition to make it consistent with what we have limited the dwelling units to, which is 801 dwelling units.
Counselor, does that answer your point?
I would ask that there not be a specific number of units in the motion, that we do, that we say that the petition is updated with the number of units that's allowable.
Per zoning?
Yeah, mm-hmm.
Okay.
For their zoning entitlements.
So is that,
Then-
say it again, just
Then
so
the
we're clear.
motion would be to approve the ordinance, but amending paragraph 2 of the ordinance. It says, whereas determining that the petition is correct, the statements, that the petition be amended to include the maximum amount of dwelling units that we have previously allowed in the zoning.
Right. Good enough?
That's good.
Can I have a second? I have a second from Councilwoman Hyder. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Are there any opposed?
The motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. We now move to agenda item J, which is our consent agenda. So I'll reach out to city council members first. Anything on the consent agenda?
Nothing that I want to pull.
Yes, and I'm sorry. I would like to further discuss items 11 and 18. So I'd like to pull those. And I have a general,
Was that 11 and 18, you said?
yes, 11 and 18.
Do you need to pull them, or do you just want to discuss them?
Well,
It's up to you.
we can discuss them. If they need to be pulled, we can pull them. But I guess for further discussion, and I got to take out this other binder. As a general comment to the things on the consent, several of these items are not specific as to the amount that is being budgeted. It says over $50,000, and there's no cap on it. So I understand that we're about to have a presentation from city staff on where the budget is so far for the fiscal year. What I would like to know is where are we at as of today's date before the approval of these? And I only ask for that because I want to see what we're doing towards the end of the fiscal year when these types of contracts without a cap are in fact approved. Because it's, in my mind, hard to budget when we're approving the amount. I mean, this is like 10 or 11 contracts that just say over $50,000. So I would ask for consensus from my colleagues that we get a budget update, and it could just be for utilities, because I think all of these contracts are for utilities, that we see what our budget is at today versus what it will be at in the future once monies are spent, once we approve these contracts. I hope that makes sense, because essentially, if you looked at what we're approving,
Yeah.
they say it could be over $50,000, but
Right.
there's no cap.
Right.
So what I'm trying to figure out is, I know a lot of corporations, I'm not saying that the city of Palm Coast does this, but in order for me to better understand, because this is my first year doing this, a lot of corporations say, we're getting towards the end of the fiscal year, so it's spend it or lose it. And I don't think that we operate that way, but I do want to see how are we operating towards the end of the fiscal year prior to contracts like this being approved versus after they're approved, and we say, well, we've approved over $50,000, but we haven't put a limit on it. So it's just a transparency thing, I think, for how we're operating within our budget when we don't have a cap on certain approvals. So I would just like to see, I don't have a fundamental issue with, or any other questions about anything outside of 11 and 18, but specifically I want to see where our budget is as of today's date before monies are spent on these contracts, if that makes sense.
So you're talking about this year's budget versus next year's budget?
I am,
Trying to help me with-
yes,
help me
this year,
understand. So
yeah,
you
this
wanna
year.
know how we've performed with the current fiscal year budget as it relates to next year's budget, which we
No,
haven't?
no,
Okay.
what I'm saying is, I would like to see a year-to-date, as of today's date,
Yeah,
what we have spent, okay? We're about to likely approve the contracts on the consent agenda.
Okay.
They all read, I believe, or most of them read, that we're approving at least $50,000, but there's no cap above that.
okay.
So I'm just trying to see how we handle the budget once those types of approvals are put into place. And it's hard for me to see that handling of those monies if I don't know where we're at to date. Mr. Mansell, I think you understand what I'm saying. You're nodding.
Yes, councilperson. If I could, Matt Mansell, your Director of Public Works, just to provide some clarity, specifically in reference to number 11, I believe is the Cintas contract for fire suppression systems. Is that the first one that you?
Well, I'm
So-
speaking generally, Mr. Mansell,
Of course,
about
but to
all the
reference this one
contracts.
as an example, we could utilize that one to provide some clarity. So in excess of $50,000 that you're referencing is a procurement threshold that dictates who can approve those expenditures. So above $50,000 per our procurement policies, that has to come to council. However, if you look on the second page of that agenda item, it will show you the specific budgeted line items that were in our approved budget for specifically the fire suppression. So the level of detail you're looking at, I believe, can be found on page 2.
Right, and I understand that, and I appreciate that clarification. What I'm trying to figure out is how are we operating within that specific budget? And it's hard for me to grasp it, especially, you know, like I said, my first time really going through a full budget cycle. It's hard for me to fully grasp it if I don't know where we are year to date versus where we end up at the end of the budget year.
Help is on the way.
So good evening, Mayor, City Council, Hanan Alves, your Finance Director. So before any requisitions are actually issued on any of these contracts, they're compared against your approved budget, and they're not approved if they will put the department over budget. Now, that's not typically a request that we get. They operate within their budget. So meaning the contract for the fire suppression, let's say that they have $25,000 approved in the budget, they will only be allowed to issue a requisition up to $25,000. They will not be allowed to issue a requisition, let's say, for $26,000. What you're approving is the usage of that contract over the contract period. So the 50,000 threshold comes in, it could be 25,000 year one, and then they maintain the same contract and spend another 25,000 year two. So the life of the contract will be over 50. But the amount that they will spend per fiscal year is per your approved budget.
So they're
The line
confined within the budget
That is correct.
approved? Okay.
That is correct.
And I'll also add, too, that some of these contracts provide services for multiple budgeted items, right? So you have a project with this, so yeah, they're going to provide the best. We've looked at it, this is the best deal we can get on fire suppression systems, so we're going to use that for this project and this project and this project, and those are all coming out of different line item budgets.
Okay, and that does help. I appreciate that. other kind of concern with just regards to where we are now versus where we will be at the end of the year is a lot of these on the consent agenda say as needed. So is it the same concept where, yes,
Absolutely.
it's as needed, but there's
As
still?
per
okay.
your approved budget.
Okay, so it's still per the approved budget.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And we can add that language in there where it says as needed, as per approved budget, if you'd like to see that in the
No,
future.
I don't, I know, I trust that that's how you all operate. I guess too, what I'm also trying to figure out, and this goes back to trying to kind of see where we are year to date versus where we are at the end, is yes, I understand it's per the budget, but do we actually need to spend that? So, I guess, you know, as I look at our costs continuing to go up, right? And we are continuing to grow, we're continuing to need more, unfortunately. Even though we have budgeted for it and we're approving as needed, do we still need to spend that money?
No.
Okay, so.
And we will not issue any purchase orders or requisitions for services that are not needed. And at the end of the fiscal year, whatever is not used is unencumbered and returned to your fund balance. And you will see that as part of your audit results. When your auditors are finished with the audit, they will come back to council and they will present part of the financial report, your budget to actuals. So what you approved in the budget versus what the departments actually spent. And it'll show you department by department, the amounts that were unspent and put back to fund balance.
And I think the city did a great job last year because I remember there being quite a large amount being put back, so I appreciate that. And I know Mr. Flanagan works very hard to be financially or fiscally responsible, as does Mr. Mansell. So I appreciate that clarification because when I see as needed, it seems very vague and loose, and as a fiscally conservative representative, I want to make sure we're not operating that way. So thank you for that clarification.
Yeah, first step in his requisition is matching to the budgeted amount.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, with that, I would, does that give you the comfort level you're looking for?
Yeah, my only other,
Yeah.
I just wanted to discuss, because of the amount of money, the $2.5 million for agenda item number 18. Can we just have somebody, for the public's, I think, benefit, to put this on the consent agenda? I'm not a huge fan of, so can we just explain what the $2.5 million specifically is going to pay for? And that's a lot of money, so what will this cover and for how long?
So I can, well, maybe I shouldn't steal Steve
let,
Flanagan's thunder.
Let him tell us how many pep tanks.
There's 0.5 million. No, just kidding.
You look very peppy, let's go.
Good evening, council. 2.5 million is basically all in both pep tank supplies, so the cost of the tank, the cost of the pump, all the parts that go into installing a new customer's pep tank assembly. And then there's also costs in there for the installation of pep tanks when it comes down to our total budget for pep tank installs. Now, in this item, really, this item is for just the installation portion of pep tank installs. And when it comes down to it, it's truly an estimated cost because, you know, we're only guesstimating or estimating as best we can as to how many new homes will apply for permits over the fiscal year.
And so that was my next question, because in the staff's description or the background of this, it says that there's been an increase in new construction and staff is not able to supply demand. In fiscal year 2024, it's anticipated new construction activity will continue. So are we getting enough money from appropriate impact fees for this type of cost, or are we fitting the bill for this? I mean, how is this funded specifically?
It's funded by the capacity costs. So as part of the rate study, these are funds that the customer or the new homeowner pays as part of their capacity fee. And the short answer is no, it's not covering the cost. And that's why in the rate study we're saying the capacity cost has to go up.
So the rate study that you all presented to us a few weeks ago, that impact fee that we were analyzing, that would also include an analysis of what the PEP tanks are costing
Yes, the
us.
PEP tanks are totally in that.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Flanagan.
Other than, of course, there's also monies in for replacement of PEP tanks that are existing that
Sure,
fail.
sure, no, I understand that. Okay, thank you.
All right, my pleasure.
I have nothing further.
No, good, appreciate that, so that helps us understand the rate study that we suffered through recently as well. You know, are there any members of the public that would like to comment on this item, on the consent agenda at this time? Seeing no one come forward, I'll close public comment, I'll come back to the dais. Any final comments?
I'll be happy to make a motion to approve.
Vice Mayor's made a motion to approve the consent agenda. May I have a second?
Second.
Councilwoman Pontieri has seconded the motion. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Are there any opposed?
The motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. We now move to final public participation. Are there any members of the public that would like to comment to me and City Council at this time? Seeing no one come forward, I'll come back and I'll go to City Council. I'll close public comment. Any final comments
Yeah,
from
I just
City
want
Council members?
I just want to thank our city manager and staff for prioritizing this flooding issue that we've all been dealing with. And it's a very difficult issue. It's going to take some time to go out and meet every single homeowner. And I don't know about the rest of you, but it seems like every day I get a new email or a phone call or something. I have no doubt that we will come up with a solution to prevent this from happening in the future. But I just want everyone here to think along the lines of what we might be able to do to help those who have been affected, maybe through no fault of their own. And I want to make sure that we keep an eye on what we can do as a community, because these are our neighbors, and they're part of this community. And I also, and that may be if we have to deal with a builder who hasn't built something right. There may be a lot of legal things involved with this down the road, but we do have to try, and I believe we have to make this right one way or another.
So, Vice Mayor, I would agree. I think there's a lot of legal things down the road. So I
Exactly
think
so.
I would suggest that we strike up each of us strike up a conversation with council so that we make sure we don't err legally.
Right.
And put the city in jeopardy because of a liability that we didn't understand the legal ramifications
Well, right,
of.
and that we're going to have to rely on council. But I think
Correct.
more importantly is us as council needs to just be thinking into the future. I'm not asking for any commitments or anything at this
Yeah.
point, but just thinking what we can do to help our community get through this issue.
Protecting the city from any liability that we're not qualified to
Protecting our
enter into.
homeowners too.
Yes, of course, they
and
are part
help-
of the city, yes.
That's where my most concern is
Right.
those
and
homeowners.
Protecting the city against unknown liabilities would protect our homeowners as well.
Right, but I'm
Okay.
talking about the ones already who have been affected. What can we do to help some of those folks? And I'm just
Well,
saying,
like I'm
think
saying-
about it.
Well, through council,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, I think, in my mind, for me, this is a general comment, not just specific to this issue, but it's communication. Continuing to communicate with the residents, letting them know that we acknowledge them, that we're hearing them, that we are addressing their concerns. And that's a team effort. So whenever you have the opportunity to reach out to a resident, whenever they reach out to you, just being accountable, I think is the number one thing they're looking for. I don't have any other comments.
I would just make sure that everybody starts their engines up and gets ready for the boat parade on Saturday evening.
I'd just like to thank the city, I'd like to thank the Department of Parks and Recreation, and also the Democratic Women's Committee for the wonderful tribute that they gave to the late Shirley Chisholm. And the trail markers were beautiful that they placed along the trail on Pond Lakes Parkway. So I just want to thank you, and it was a wonderful ceremony.
Counselor,
I have nothing.
you're not going to get away with that next time.
Next time I'll have something.
City manager.
Packed for us, right?
City manager.
Yes. I only have one item, and that's
Please.
per your agenda packet, emergency sole source items from October. Any questions on that?
I did have one question on that, city manager, sorry.
Okay, no, that's okay. That's what we asked.
The pilot study that's referenced for water plant number 1 capital. What was that pilot study?
So I'll just ask Steve to come up again and address those concerns.
I believe the one you're talking about would be a Water Plant 1 study for sustainability. And that went through a review process for the selection of the folks that are the main team to do that, which is, I believe, Friesen Nichols. So it's going to be a long process of evaluating, because that's our oldest plant. It's a lime softening plant. And at some point, whether that's 5 years, 10 years, 25 years down the road, lime softening may not be a technology that works anymore for treating water to the level that it needs to be treated based on our source. So we're trying to evaluate our short and long-term goals as we move forward with the lime softening facility. We may need new, additional lands nearby to try and use for new technology. Both our other plants are lime softening technology, so it's possible that we'll end up going with that for a future facility or replacement facility down the road. But we want to get an idea of short and long term as to how the facility, what shape the facility is and how we can plan for it in our capital plan.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
While I'm here, because I was thinking back there, I left out one piece of, I don't often get to share with you good news when it comes down to costs, because we're usually up here talking about how inflation's hitting everybody in one way or another, and it's killing us with chemicals and manpower and construction costs. Well, the item for the PEP tanks, that renewal actually went down quite a percentage.
Love to hear that.
Because we have a little bit of competition between those two vendors, so our bids this time actually went down a fair amount.
Capitalism wins.
So,
Thank you.
helping the overall plan.
Steve, thank you very much.
My pleasure.
City Manager, was there anything else? Then I would accept the motion to adjourn.
You don't want to stay here all night?
I don't.
Okay, I'll make
We're
the
adjourned.
motion.
Thank you.